Chapter 6:17. Jiao Ye pulled his bow and shot the arrow. His eyes were resolute as he gazed at the handsome man who was holding a spicy strip in his mouth and wagging his finger at him. His murderous aura rose. As a disciple of the heavenly spring holy land of the hidden dragon royal court, with the god-slaying bow in his hand, he wasn't afraid of anything. However, that man dared to mock him. Youngsters nowadays, even if they're thick, they can't do it. Can't do it, your sister. Father's cloud-piercing arrow can vanish even if there are thousands of soldiers and horses. Jiao Ye snorted angrily. Instantly, the power in his hand relaxed. The thick light arrow, which had gathered a lot of powerful energy, shot out, bringing with it thunderous roars and ear-piercing power that could shake people's minds. The void seemed to distort and rumble at this moment. The thick light arrow spun, stirring the air, making it blurry and distorted. This arrow was much more intimidating than the previous one, and its energy was much more savage. It was extremely terrifying and incomparably ferocious. Even the Pill Palace's master, Luo Danqing, who was hovering in the sky, didn't think that he could resist this arrow. It was really terrifying. The Shura sovereign held the Shura sect sword, his face solemn. The formidable power of that arrow had given him goosebumps. Worthy of being an expert of the hidden dragon royal court. The people of the Pill Palace were desperate. How could the power of that arrow become stronger? Would that person be able to withstand it? The speed became faster, and the energy became thicker. Just sensing the fluctuations within it was enough to make one's heart tremble. Hades held half a spicy strip in his mouth. He reached out his hand and sucked on the spicy strip, feeling so happy. He squinted at the thick arrow shooting over, the corners of his mouth twitching. I told you! It's useless to be thick. It's flashy but not solid enough. As soon as he finished speaking, the Nether King raised his fist and took a small step back. His fist smashed out and directly collided with the thick light arrow that was shooting towards him. The intense explosion that he had imagined did not appear. That incomparably frightening arrow was still the same as before. With a soft puff sound, it crumbled apart like a fart that had been scattered. The thick light arrow turned into a rain of light that filled the sky and dissipated. Everyone was dumbfounded. Looking at Hades's lifeless face, this guy, where did this pervert come from? Not only did he enjoy stripping people's clothes, he was also so powerful. Shattering the light arrow was like shattering a fart. Up in the sky, Luo Danqing let out a long roar. Without any worries, he could finally let loose. Due to the experience of being ambushed in the previous battle with the Shura sovereign, he had been on guard against the experts of the hidden dragon royal court. However, now that the powerhouse was entangled, he could finally have a good fight with the Shura sovereign. Boom, boom, boom. Above the sky, fiery light glistened and sword energy crisscrossed. The battle between the two clashed again, and the sound of explosions rang out incessantly. Hades swung his fist, rolled his tongue, and swallowed the spicy strip. He exhaled, then waved his hand at Jiao Ye. Stop fooling around. Go back. You can't do it. Jiao Ye was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. This guy. Why did he keep saying that he couldn't do it? He was enraged. However, compared to his anger and gloominess, the Heavenly Mist City's alchemists on the city wall were elated. They were so excited. All of them looked at Hades with enthusiasm. Although this guy was a clothes-stripping maniac, they couldn't deny that he was really strong. The third elder was so excited that his face was flushed. Worthy of being the Lord. He's invincible. Hades turned to Bufang, his face gloating. Young man, I didn't lie to you, did I? For the spicy strip, I must crush everything. Bufang was speechless to Hades's smug face. However, he couldn't deny that Hades was really strong. The battle in the sky gradually reached its climax. Rumbling sounds rang out incessantly. All of a sudden, a long whistle echoed. The light in the sky parted, and two silhouettes landed. Luo Donqing's aura fluctuated. His face was pale as if his old wounds had recovered. He couldn't resist the Shura sovereign. As for the Shura sovereign, he landed back on the war chariot, his chest heaving up and down. His eyes were surging and his face was filled with excitement. Fight! Shura army! Attack the city! Flatten the heavenly mist city! The Shura sovereign raised the Shura sword in his hand, roaring. His roar shot up to the 9 heavens, his aura ferocious. As soon as the Shura sovereign gave his order, the Shura army roared excitedly. Their auras burst out. True energy shackles swayed behind those experts, surging and intimidating. On the heavenly mist city's city wall, the experts changed their faces. Open the heavenly mist city's defensive formation. Luo Donqing's face was stern as he ordered. After the alchemists received his order, they dashed to a corner of the city, trying their best to open the defensive formation. Boom! Rumble! The experts stormed toward the heavenly mist city. A jet of light sparkled. The heavenly mist city's defensive formation was activated, trying to resist the first wave of the Shura army's ferocious aura. According to Luo Donqing's calculations, the heavenly mist city's defensive formation could withstand the first wave of the Shura army's attack. After the first wave of attack, the Shura army's aura would be weakened. When their aura was weakened, it was time for them to strike. Jiao Ye stood in the crowd, his face dark and gloomy. One expert after another whizzed past him, but his eyes were still fixed on the city wall, staring at Bufang and the others. All of a sudden, he smiled. The corners of his mouth curled up, and light shot out from his eyes. In a corner of the heavenly mist city, a revolving formation was moving unceasingly. An expert wearing an alchemist's robe descended, landing in front of the formation. His face was solemn. He rose his hand, making a hand seal, pushing the energy seal into the formation. The formation rumbled, spinning unceasingly, radiating dazzling radiance. At this moment, the heavenly mist city's formation suddenly expanded. All of a sudden, not far from the formation, the guards there roared angrily. It seemed like they were shouting and shouting. A moment later, the alchemist gawked, looking in that direction. A shadow slowly approached from a far distance, holding a fiery red kitchen knife in his hand. His body was handsome, and the corners of his mouth hung an evil smile. I didn't think that the hidden dragon royal court would follow the Shura army to attack the city. Interesting. Zhou Tong squinted, smiling. He looked at the alchemist, his murderous aura gathering. My kitchen knife can't kill people, but I can still kill you. Boom. Terrifying energy shot out. A moment later, the alchemist's eyes widened. As the Shura army approached, the people on the city wall had a stern look on their faces. The defensive formation revolved more fiercely, releasing more energy to stop the Shura army's attack. All of a sudden, Luo Donqing's face changed. This was because he discovered that the light of the Guardian formation was flickering faintly before it finally collapsed. The Shura army approached the city wall as if there was no one there. Although the heavenly mist city's city wall was firm, how could it resist the bombardment of so many ancient Shura cities experts? It was directly smashed. This change was beyond everybody's estimation. What happened? Why did the defensive formation collapse all of a sudden? Fight! Fight! Luo Donqing roared. He didn't have a way out. The city wall was full of cracks from the bombardment. The alchemist's eyes turned red. With a resolute air, they stormed forward. The two sides collided, and energy burst out. The energy swirled unceasingly, rolling up the strong wind that whistled unceasingly, fluttering Bufang's hair. He stood on the city wall, watching the battle between the two armies. His brows slightly furrowed. All of a sudden, a cold, murderous aura locked on him. Not only him, but Hades also lifted his head, looking suspiciously into the distance. There, Jiao Ye pulled his bow one more time. However, it was different this time. This time, the god-slaying bow had an ancient, black, and cold arrow. It was a real arrow, not an energy arrow. I wanted to save this arrow for that netherworld creature. But you've successfully provoked my anger. So, die. The god-slaying arrow shot from the god-slaying bow, killing a god with one arrow. It was an arrow specially prepared for the netherworld creature. The hidden dragon royal court had developed this mist to capture and kill the netherworld creatures in the netherworld continent. Boom, the arrow was shot. However, it was beyond everybody's expectation. This arrow was really slow. Compared to the light arrow from before, the speed of this black arrow was much slower. It was so slow that everybody thought they could dodge it by just turning their body. Hades squinted his eyes. Youngsters these days, being slow won't do. Slow? The corners of Jiao Ya's mouth twitched. A moment later, his eyes widened. There was a tearing sound. The arrow disappeared. The next time it reappeared, it got out of the void, just 1 inch away from Hades's glabella. Hades frowned. A flow of black energy flowed out from his body, bursting around him. The terrifying energy surged. Hades couldn't help but raise his hand, grabbing the arrow. Sizzle! 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 Pitch black smoke rose into the air. The arrow was shaking hard in Hades's hand. It was like a red-hot iron. Swoosh! The Nether King's body slightly tilted to the side. His hand involuntarily loosened, and the arrow shot out at lightning speed. Hades's face changed. Yu, who was standing next to Bufang, also paled. As soon as Hades loosened his hand, the arrow dashed toward Bufang. The moment the arrow left his hand, Hades had a bad premonition. He felt that his future was bleak. It's over. His spicy strips are gone. Yu rose her jade-like arm, trying to copy the way she had blocked the previous arrow. She wanted to stop this one. However, Bufang stopped her. Hades had accidentally let go of the arrow. How could Bufang let you stop it? Pressing Yu's hand, Bufang's hand had green smoke twirling around it. The black turtle constellation Wak rose against the wind, turning into a protective shield in front of him. The arrow flew fast, hitting the black turtle constellation Wak. The ancient and heavy black turtle constellation Wak was really hard. This attack only caused Bufang's figure to stagger a few steps back. In the end, the arrow landed on the ground with a crisp ringing sound. Jiao Yu was bewildered. He couldn't believe it. His arrow was blocked. The black turtle constellation Wak fell. Bufang's face was emotionless. He exhaled. A moment later, a bowl of steaming hot ramen appeared in his hand. He waved the noodle in the sky, and in the next moment, a ripple that enveloped half of the city spread out and covered everyone's bodies. Gourmet Array activate. Chapter 6:18. Gourmet Magic Array activate. When Bufang said those words, his voice was very soft and not very loud. A bowl of steaming hot rampage ramen soared into the sky and disappeared. In the next instant, a terrifying energy wave spread out, instantly covering half of Heavenly Mist City. Everyone was stunned because they realized that the tip of their noses had suddenly surged with the aroma of a dish. This aroma made them dumbfounded, and they were addicted to it as they sniffed it. In Heavenly Mist City, Zhoutong, who had just broken the city defense magic array, was playing with the fiery red kitchen knife in his hand. His eyes were smiling as he looked at the direction of the city gate, which was filled with spirit energy. He knew that at this moment there would be chaos. However, soon his expression changed, because he realized that dense spirit energy had actually emerged around his body. That spirit energy, along with the aroma of the dish, made him involuntarily intoxicated. This aroma smelled really good. After Zhoutong held the kitchen knife tightly, he couldn't help but furrow his brows, sniffing the aroma of the dish. The dense energy around his body became thicker and thicker, making him involuntarily want to take a deep breath. However, soon he was frightened and his eyes widened. Aroma of food? Why would there be aroma of food? Heavenly Mist City is a pill city. Why would there be aroma of food? Zhou Tong's face was filled with disbelief. He stood at his original spot, looking around, only to find that he seemed to have fallen into a mysterious magic array. That dense energy was the operation of the magic array, and it made him feel a strange wave of energy. In the east, west, south, north, and south of Heavenly Mist City, there is a dish with abundant spirit energy. The spirit energy that these dishes emit is specially processed, and it will gather together, condensing into a dish's aroma, forming a unique wave. This method. Who the hell did this? As a first-grade chef of the Valley of Gluttony, Zhou Tong could see through the mysteries of this magic array with just a glance, and his expression couldn't help but change. This magic array was actually made of gourmet food. Currently, the Valley of Gluttony was researching how to use gourmet food to build magic arrays. However, in Heavenly Mist City, he found this kind of gourmet magic array. What was going on? In Heavenly Mist City. Could it be a little chef from a restaurant? Impossible. How could that little chef set up such a gourmet magic array? Setting up a formation was not that simple. It required the formation I and the spiritual energy in the formation I to resonate. That was the only way to make the formation work. The Valley of Gluttony was still studying it, but they could already set it up here. Thinking of this, Zhou Tong's expression froze as he rushed out of the city with a grave expression. Because that was where the spiritual energy of the gourmet array converged. Bufang stood on top of the city wall. He held the black turtle constellation walk in one hand and slowly reached out to pick up the black iron arrow that had fallen to the ground. His expression was as calm as an ancient well. The power of this arrow was very strong. Even though Bufang used the black turtle constellation walk to block it, he was still forced to retreat a few steps. Hades looked embarrassed. If he hadn't let go, he wouldn't have shot the arrow. Previously, he was also stimulated by the fluctuations of this arrow. The burning sensation made his balls ache. If it wasn't for the burning sensation, he wouldn't have let go. Thinking about this, Hades was a little angry. He was tricked. That arrow could resonate with the nether energy in his body, which affected his nether energy. That was why he was tricked. From a distance, Jiao Ye coldly glared at Hades. Turns out this fellow is also a netherworld creature. No wonder he's so strong. If so, I will shoot them all. Jiao Ye's mouth twitched, revealing a smile. With the god-slaying bow and god-slaying arrow, Jiao Ye was so confident. It was because the divine weapons of the hidden dragon royal court were used to subdue the netherworld creatures. Although their powers were ordinary compared to the other divine weapons, they had a special suppressive effect on the netherworld creatures. Young man, this is this king's fault. This king is a little emotional. Allow this king to settle this fellow. The nether king snorted out a breath of white air from his nostrils and said coldly. However, out of his expectation, Bufang just waved his hand. No need. Let me do it. Bufang said casually. Hades was bewildered. The experts on the city wall were also bewildered. Nangong Wuk looked at Bufang with a frightened face. Old Bu, don't act recklessly. Those people are too strong. Sorceress and Sheng and the others also looked at Bufang as if they were looking at a monster. Did this little chef want to fight against those people? With his power of breaking through one of the Supreme Being's shackles? Bufang looked at the others. The corners of his mouth twitched, and his stiff face revealed a mysterious smile. He didn't say anything to the others. Holding the black turtle constellation walk, he walked out of the city wall step by step. While he was inhaling and exhaling, the thick spirit energy from the heavenly mist city gathered around his body, making him look like a banished immortal. His striped red and white vermilion robe fluttered, his sleeves fluttering. Everyone looked at Bufang in surprise. Did Bufang really want to fight against the experts of the hidden dragon royal court with the power of breaking through one of the Supreme Being's shackles? His opponent was an expert of the divine soul realm. Spirit energy gathered like a dragon. In the sky, there seemed to be illusions of dishes appearing. Bufang stood among them, and the vermilion robe on his body emitted a dazzling radiance, making him look like a god. Green smoke curled up and a kitchen knife appeared. The pitch-black dragon bone kitchen knife in his hand gradually became resplendent. Energy gathered in it, turning it into a huge kitchen knife. He carried it on his shoulder. He gently exhaled. With the dragon bone kitchen knife in his left hand and the black turtle constellation wok in his right, Bufang wore the vermilion robe. He was like a dazzling star in the night sky. Everyone was dumbfounded. No one seemed to recognize Bufang. It was the first time they saw Bufang in such a domineering state. It was incomparably dazzling, shocking people's eyes. Hades exclaimed, "This young man is really domineering." Nangong Wuk said, "I'm sure I saw a fake old Bu." You widened her eyes, looking at Bufang. Her red lips parted slightly, and her beautiful face was filled with astonishment. Bufang's face was calm. His aura rose continuously under the support of the gourmet array. His aura surged, and his power was majestic. Below the city, the members of the Shura army were shocked by this sudden scene. The Shura sovereign's devilish face couldn't help but furrow his brows. No wonder this little chef dared to kill the experts of the ancient Shura city. It turned out that he had some confidence. Was this the source of his confidence? Indeed extraordinary. Did he rely on this array? However, this array didn't seem to be the same as the ones he had seen in the past. That fluctuation didn't seem to depend on crystals. Jiaoya grinned. This ant-like thing dared to fight him. No matter how imposing he was, his god-slaying bow could pierce him with just one arrow. There was nothing that one arrow couldn't solve. If there was, he would use a thicker arrow. Looking at Bufang's domineering appearance, Jiaoya directly pulled the bowstring and shot an arrow. The light arrow congregated, and terrifying energy gathered unceasingly. An arrow was shot. Along with the whistling sound, it dashed toward Bufang in the sky. Bufang indifferently looked at the arrow shooting at him, his face emotionless. The gourmet array revolved, filling his body with spirit energy. At this moment, he felt so full of energy that he could move mountains and rivers with one strike. Facing that light arrow, Bufang didn't dodge. He held the black turtle constellation wok in one hand, wielding it. The black turtle constellation wok whistled, spinning as it moved. With a puff, the light arrow was shattered into pieces. It was like a fart. Everybody was bewildered. A moment later, they burst into an uproar. He had smashed it. That little chef had done it. So terrifying. He had smashed the light arrow that had wounded the Pill Palace's master with a single wok. Worthy of being the Dark Horse chef. Everybody was so excited. Luo Danqing and the others were also bewildered. They didn't expect that Bufang could show such formidable competence. He squinted, sensing the energy in the air. He couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. He knew that Bufang had borrowed the energy of the array, but no doubt, the wok in Bufang's hand wasn't an ordinary item. No matter what, Bufang's attack had given everybody in the Heavenly Mist City a shot of adrenaline. Because the defensive array was broken, the experts of the Heavenly Mist City didn't have enough energy. However, at this moment, everybody's aura shot up to the sky. Jiaoya's eyes shrank. That black wok was a little magical. Taking a deep breath, Jiaoya pulled the bow one more time. This time, 3 light arrows appeared on the bow. The light arrows twinkled, twisting the void. With a whistling sound, 3 light arrows shot toward Bufang, their long tails swinging behind them. The 3 light arrows formed a triangular formation, whistling and zooming. Bufang's thought flickered. The Shura tower in front of his chest glowed faintly. His immense mental force gushed out, guiding the black turtle constellation wok to move horizontally. Swoosh! 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 A muffled sound echoed. The 3 light arrows were smashed one more time. However, the black turtle constellation wok was bounced away, shrinking in the air. Eventually, Bufang held it in his hand. Everybody was silent for a while. Then, they burst into an uproar. The hidden dragon royal court's experts had attacked twice, but Bu Fong had stopped them. That dark horse chef didn't disappoint them. Hades grinned, pointing at Jiaoya with a mocking face. Youngsters nowadays aren't tough enough. Jiaoya's eyes had a gleam of seriousness. How could an ant at the divine physique echelon realm, who had just broken one of the supreme being's shackles, smash his light arrows? Impossible. Bu Fong held the black turtle constellation walk with one hand. His other hand held the black turtle constellation walk, slowly putting down the dragon bone kitchen knife on his shoulder. He pointed the knife at Jiaoya, his face indifferent. "It's my turn. Take this." Bu Fong's faint voice lingered in the air. Everybody was bewildered. Then, they burst into an uproar. So domineering! The way Bu Fong pointed the knife at them had shaken everybody's heart. Being at the divine physique echelon realm, it wasn't an exaggeration at all. Worthy of being the dark horse chef. Don't be afraid. Just fight. Chapter 619. It's your turn now? Jiaoya was bewildered. He stared at Bu Fong, who was hovering arrogantly in the sky, his entire body enshrouded in mist. Jiaoya couldn't help but sneer. The reason why Bu Fong could resist his attack was because of the ancient, pitch-black black turtle constellation walk. If Jiaoya wasn't mistaken, that black walk wasn't an ordinary walk. It was full of divine charm. As it could stop the arrows shot by the god-slaying bow, it was enough to prove how terrifying this black walk was. With Bu Fong's cultivation base, this black walk could smash his arrows. It was hard for Jiaoya not to notice that black walk. However, that walk was obviously a defensive tool. It wasn't an offensive tool. Bu Fong couldn't use that walk to counterattack. Bu Fong stood arrogantly in the sky, looking at Jiaoya indifferently. He held the dragon bone kitchen knife in one hand, which bloomed with extreme light. The roar of a dragon resounded. Jiaoya exhaled. He looked at Bu Fong, waiting for Bu Fong to take action. He wanted to see what this little chef had to attack him. Did he think that he could defeat him with just a formation? Everyone looked at Bu Fong solemnly. Was the dark horse chef going to make a move? With his competence, could he pose a threat to Jiaoya? Everybody was a little skeptical. However, many of them were looking forward to seeing this dark horse chef continue to be a dark horse. Holding the black turtle constellation walk in one hand, Bu Fong's eyes gradually became serious. A moment later, his face changed. He became a bit more dignified. He held the dragon bone kitchen knife with one hand, urging the true energy in his body. Dense energy swirled in the sky, congregating on the knife. Then, Bu Fong wielded the knife, striking down on Jiaoya below. The might surged, and that terrifying bombardment caused the air to tremble. Overlord Blade. Bu Fong's body suddenly surged with an aura that was as domineering as that of a king. It was as if a peerless expert had calmly opened his eyes. Everyone's heart shuddered. They were all affected by this imposing aura. With the help of the gourmet array, the power of Bu Fong's knife skill was enhanced. Bu Fong also felt as if the doubts in his heart had been shattered, as if he had suddenly understood something. A streak of saber chi slashed down from the sky. Everyone stared at the blade energy with strange expressions on their faces. Was this knife energy the reason why this dark horse chef dared to attack Jiaoya? The saber energy was very strong, but in everyone's eyes, it was only at the divine body realm. In fact, it wasn't even at the peak of the divine body realm. Most of the people present could shatter this blade aura. No one had ever thought that the big move that Owner Bu had been preparing for a long time would be this weak move to Jiaoya. This was a slap to the face by strength. However, many people were relieved. After all, Owner Bu's strength was only at the level of one supreme being realm. However, the fact that he was able to erupt with a combat strength that far exceeded that of a supreme being realm shackle was already beyond everyone's expectations. No matter what, his strength was there. What else could they ask for? Jiao Ye looked at the blade energy, and his face couldn't help but twitch. He sneered, and his disdainful face became thicker. Indeed. A weak attack. Is this what you got to provoke me? Jiao Ye couldn't stop laughing. His laughter reverberated through the entire heavenly mist city, which made people's faces turn ugly. This Jiao Ye was too arrogant. Bufang was calm as he looked at Jiao Ye. His face didn't change because of Jiao Ye's mockery. The corners of Jiao Ye's mouth rose. He pulled his bow and shot an arrow. Instantly, the arrow whistled, directly aiming at the knife that Bufang had slashed down. A loud explosion resounded. The blade energy was smashed directly. So weak. Jiao Ye sneered. Everyone was speechless as they looked at the blade aura that dissipated into the void. Their expressions were a little stiff. Indeed, it was smashed easily. Bufang's face was still calm, as if he didn't care about the blade energy that had been smashed by the arrow. However, at the moment the blade energy was smashed, he wielded another knife. The golden kitchen knife twinkled. The knife light rolled and the blade energy slashed down. The second blade energy grumblingly fell. However, the power of Bufang's second blade wasn't much stronger than the first. Everybody sighed helplessly. Indeed, even the Dark Horse chef couldn't create a miracle. The gap between their strengths was too big. Is it useful? It's just a waste of effort. Jiao Ye sneered. He pulled his bow one more time. The light arrow was knocked on the longbow, gathering energy unceasingly. As soon as his fingers loosened, the light arrow was like a wild horse running away from its reins, roaring and roaring. The saber chi and the light arrow collided again, exploding with a loud bang and suddenly dissipating. The situation seemed to have changed. At that time, it was Bufang who had used the Black Turtle Constellation Walk to smash Jiao Ye's light arrow. But now, Jiao Ye's light arrow had directly smashed Bufang's blade energy. The change in the situation caused everyone to involuntarily feel a sense of disappointment in their hearts. The smile on Jiao Ye's face became wider. It's useless. No matter how many slashes you make, I can smash them one by one. Jiao Ye mocked. His eyes fell on Bufang, full of ridicule. However, it was beyond everybody's expectation. Bufang didn't seem to mind. The corners of his mouth even curled up slightly. In the next moment, another saber slashed down with a loud bang. You're really stupid. How could an ant like you imagine the power of the god-slaying bow? No matter how many slashes you make, I will smash all of them. Jiao Ye's mouth was cold. Bufang didn't say anything. Another slash. Overlord fourth blade. Swish. This time, when the blade energy slashed, the air rumbled as if it was burning because of the friction. Bufang looked at the blade, the corners of his mouth twitching. Hades and the others squinted, looking at the scene in astonishment. This blade energy is a little strange. Jiao Ye didn't mind it. He just drew his bow and shot the light arrow out of habit. The light arrow grumblingly hit the blade energy. He thought that no matter how many times Bufang slashed, he could break it with one arrow. However, this time, he was wrong. That saber energy roared and actually obliterated his light arrow. It continued to slash. What? How could it be? How come his blade energy has become stronger? Jiao Ye's eyes shrank. He drew his bow again, shooting another arrow. The blade energy was extinguished. Although the blade energy was extinguished, Jiao Ye couldn't help but feel shocked. He squinted, gazing at Bufang. This little chef wasn't ordinary indeed. His aura is changing. Shura Sovereign held the Shura sect sword, gazing at the chef as he said seriously. Shura Sovereign was familiar with aura, so he could clearly feel that Bufang's aura was increasing unceasingly. After each slash, the blade energy and the aura overlapped, increasing the power of the slash. It was a profound method of using aura. Even Shura Sovereign couldn't master it because he had to make his aura and blade energy resonate. That required a point of resonance. For the fourth slash, Bufang continued to slash. This time, Jiaoya didn't dare to be careless. He pulled the bow with all of his strength. However, his eyes shrank again as his light arrow was broken. His god-slaying bow was deflated again and again by that chef. Unforgivable! 3 arrows were shot in a row, and they finally destroyed the knife energy that Bufang had slashed down. However, Bufang didn't mind Jiaoya's situation. He continued to slash. However, this time, he felt a little strenuous. Overlord 13 blades, 1 blade stacked on top of the other. 13 blades stacked on top of each other, which could slay gods and destroy Buddhas. Thus, it was really strenuous to use the full power of the Overlord 13 blades. Panting, Bufang slashed for the 6th time. The Overlord's 6 blades blade energy rumblingly slashed like lightning. Thunder roared, and the blade energy seemed to come alive. Jiaoya's face became more solemn. He straightened his back, taking 1 step forward and continuously pulling the bow. The arrows shot out in a triangular formation. Boom, boom, boom. The explosion burst forth in the sky. The blade energy expanded, rolling up the entire sky, pounding on Jiaoya's body. Dust and sand rolled up. Jiaoya's body burst out, his face dark and gloomy. Although the blade energy didn't hurt him, it had put him in a difficult situation. Everyone was stunned by the reversal of the situation once again. Everyone widened their eyes in disbelief. Their emotions were fluctuating. As they saw Jiaoya strenuously, they couldn't help but feel surprised. Bufang held the blade with both of his hands, his face solemn. He indifferently glanced at Jiaoya in the distance. "This slash, keep going. Come on," Bufang said casually. Then, both of his hands wielded the blade. The blade energy grumblingly slashed. Overlord 7 blades, slash. Chapter 620. Overlord's 7th blade, slash. The surging blade energy seemed to be able to tear the sky as it grumblingly fell from the kitchen knife in Bufang's hand. The air seemed to squeak because it couldn't bear the heavy slash. It seemed like it was about to be burned by the friction, as if it was about to be slashed apart. The Overlord's 7th blade overlapped, and its power became more terrifying. Behind Bufang, it seemed like a peerless swordsman had woken up. When his eyes opened, the blade light expanded to the entire world. Bufang's body bobbed up and down in the mist. He held the dazzling gold dragon bone kitchen knife in his hand, and his aura rose unceasingly. Spirit energy gathered under his feet, making him look like a banished immortal. As the blade slashed down, everybody was frightened. Under the gourmet array's support, Bufang had performed the Overlord's 7th blade, which made him look like a real Overlord descending to the world. Moreover, the way he wielded his knife was so compatible with the Overlord, many people were speechless. Could it be that the Overlord was also a man who wielded a kitchen knife? The blade slashed down. The wind and clouds changed color. Many experts' eyes shrank, gazing at the blade energy. Jiaoya shouted. His aura rocketed unceasingly. He was so frightened and enraged. He didn't expect that the ant-like thing in front of him could use an array to compete with him. Did he really think that the Hidden Dragon Royal Court's experts could be bullied? Unforgivable. Bully the Hidden Dragon Royal Court. Kill. 9-star pearl arrow. Jiaoya roared. His entire body bent into the shape of a bow. The ancient black god-slaying bow was pulled fully, and 9 light arrows congregated on the god-slaying bow. Swish, swish, swish. The 9 light arrows whistled and shot out. It was as if 9 meteors had crossed the sky, tearing it apart. They collided with the slashing blade energy in the distance. Boom, boom, boom. A terrifying explosion erupted, and a gust of wind howled, swirling up the dust in the air. Everybody gawked at the scene. They couldn't help but take in a breath of cold air. No one would have thought that Bufang could actually do this. He was really too strong. Bufang's figure slowly descended from the void onto the city wall. His chest heaved up and down uncontrollably. His body was slightly hot, and all the pores on his body seemed to open up. The Overlord's seventh blade was his current limit. If he were to use it again, his body would not be able to take it. However, with the help of the gourmet array, the power of Bufang's 7 overlapping blades had actually made the arrows of the Hidden Dragon Royal Court's experts lose their power. The rumbling explosion caused everyone's footsteps to halt. The slaughter came to a halt at this moment. The Shura sovereign stopped his subordinates from advancing. Although it was said that one's imposing manner was the most important factor in a battle, and it would weaken over and over again, everyone's imposing manner in Heavenly Mist City was extremely high at this moment. That little chef had actually turned the situation around with his own strength. The dispirited Heavenly Mist City's imposing manner suddenly became domineering. Indeed, he was a miraculous little chef. No wonder he could kill all the experts of his ancient Shura city. No wonder he had the guts to control his ancient Shura city's divine tool. The Shura sovereign tightened his grip on the Shura sword. His eyes slightly narrowed as he considered whether he should seize this chance to kill that little chef or not. However, in the end, he chose to give up. That was because the billowing smoke and dust were finally blown away by a gust of wind. A vigorous figure was revealed. That figure held an ancient, pitch-black longbow, his face stern. His figure was somewhat disheveled, and his hair was disheveled. His face was extremely gloomy, as though it was about to drip water. His eyes gazed at Bufang, who was standing on the city wall. His chest heaved unceasingly. With each step he took, his aura condensed. "You've successfully angered me. The experts of the Hidden Dragon Royal Court cannot be offended. You little brat. You must die." The pitch-black longbow was unfurled one more time, twinkling brilliantly. He gazed at Bufang, the corners of his mouth rising into an exaggerated arc. He knew that Bufang didn't have the ability to use that blade energy one more time. No matter what, he was an expert of the Hidden Dragon Royal Court. He could easily analyze the reason why Bufang had used that blade energy one more time. After all, Bufang was just a divine physique echelon expert who had broken through one of the Supreme Being's shackles. The reason why he could increase his cultivation base and slash an attack that could be compared to a divine soul realm expert was because of the array. Also, it was because of that blade technique. However, his aura had been revealed. Thus, Jiao Ye didn't believe that Bufang could use it again. If he couldn't use it, then he had to die. Jiao Ye stepped forward, his aura rising unceasingly. That oppressive, terrifying aura made people's faces change. The Shura sovereign narrowed his eyes, the corners of his mouth rising. "Do it!" Roar. The moment the Shura sovereign's evil voice arose, the Shura great army stormed forward one more time, clashing with the experts of the Heavenly Mist City. The Shura sovereign held the Shura sword, stepping on his war chariot. He soared up into the sky, aiming at Bufang on the city wall. The corners of his mouth curled into a devilish smile, his eyes sharp and exquisite. Jiao Ye's body also soared up into the sky, aiming at Bufang. Bufang stood on the city wall, letting the strong wind howl and blow at his vermilion robe, making it flap noisily. Looking at the Shura sovereign and Jiao Ye, who were dashing toward him, he exhaled deeply. Bufang exhaled a long breath. Yu's beautiful face was solemn. She stood in front of Bufang, raising her jade-white wrist, gazing at the two who were dashing toward him. It was unknown where Hades got another spicy strip. He held it in his mouth, munching on it as he gazed at the two who were dashing toward him from a distance. White smoke fumed from his nostrils as he snorted unceasingly. Jiao Ye soared up into the sky, pulling his bow. Seeing Hades, he knew he was a netherworld creature. Of course, he didn't dare to be careless. He took out a black iron arrow. Symbols moved on the arrow, hissing as it shot out. It was like a thunderclap. Get lost! In Jiao Ye's eyes, the netherworld creatures couldn't even withstand one blow. His roar had surprised Hades. He was the lord of the netherworld, Hades' era. How could someone yell at him like that? Where did this fellow get his courage? Just because of that broken bow in his hand? The Nether King was suddenly enraged. He swallowed the entire chili strip in one gulp, and a murderous look appeared in his eyes. He took a deep breath. The taste of the abyssal spicy strip filled his mouth, making him sink in. He clenched his fists, taking a step back. His formidable aura was gathering. Jiao Ye smiled disdainfully. The god-slaying arrow on the god-slaying bow. No matter what kind of netherworld creature it would be pierced through. No netherworld creature could resist the formidable power of the god-slaying arrow. The arrowhead in Hades's eyes became bigger. The air seemed to twist as it spun. Hades's mouth bulged as he chewed the spicy strip. A moment later, he punched. Roar. It was like an ancient savage beast had just woken up from its deep slumber. The entire world was shaken at this moment. Far from them, Jiao Ye, who was stepping on the air and shooting the arrow, changed his face. His eyes widened and his body stiffened. The entire heavenly mist city wall seemed to squeak as if it couldn't bear the heavy burden. In just a blink of an eye, the city wall was filled with cracks. A massive fist shadow shot up into the sky, crushing the sky. The god-slaying iron arrow bloomed with the ultimate radiance. The lines on the arrow moved, guiding the nether energy in the fist shadow. The entire world seemed to be covered by the pitch-black nether energy. Jiao Ye's eyes shrank. His mouth dropped and his breath stagnated. He was so frightened. That nether energy. How could it be so formidable? What level was that netherworld creature at? Jiao Ye thought that he had made a mistake. How could a netherworld creature at such a level appear in the hidden dragon continent? Boom! The god-slaying iron arrow, which had bloomed to the extreme, finally shattered. The fist shadow had crushed it into smithereens. Facing that formidable fist, Jiao Ye didn't hesitate to turn around and run. Such an existence, it wasn't something he could deal with. He needed the real experts from the hidden dragon royal court's holy lands. Encountering such a netherworld creature, he didn't need to hesitate. He just turned around and ran. Run? You forced I to take action. You still want to run? Hades was enraged at this moment. Turning his fist into a palm, it turned into a massive palm that covered the entire sky, grumblingly slapping down on Jiao Ye. Jiao Ye wanted to run away, but that palm seemed to cover the entire world. He had no way to escape. Under his horrified gaze, the palm finally slammed down. Boom! The entire ground trembled at this moment, and the ground seemed to crack open. The Shura sovereign was dumbstruck in the void. Tens of thousands of Shura army soldiers held their breaths, not daring to move. Everybody looked at that peerless and elegant figure, not daring to breathe loudly. This sudden, terrifying appearance had made everybody shiver. High up in the sky, rumbling sounds rolled and rolled. Standing on the city wall, Hades retrieved his energy palm. The nether energy in the sky dispersed. He lifted his head, looking at the surging void. His eyes were deep, and his entire body looked serious, which was totally different from his usual funny appearance. On the ground, a massive palm emerged, with a bloodstain in the middle. Jiao Ye's body was smashed into minced meat under that palm. Only the pitch-black god-slaying bow was left on the ground. Bufang was slightly surprised. Was this the true strength of the Nether King? It was indeed a little abnormal. He didn't expect that little huss, who loved to eat spicy strips, was actually so terrifying. Without a bit of hesitation, the Shura sovereign turned around and ran away, leaving Hades. That fellow was really terrifying. However, Hades didn't have the mood to care about the Shura sovereign. He looked at the sky as if he was looking at something. Bufang was a little bewildered as he thought it was a little strange. He's the lord of the netherworld, so he's restricted by the continent's principle. The principle doesn't allow him to appear on the continent. Moreover, he's using his cultivation base. Of course, the principle will reject him. Moreover, you coldly stood by Bufang talking. However, she didn't finish her words. Hades turned his head begrudgingly. Those old fellows in the netherworld will know that I's here to stir up trouble. So, I will have to return to the netherworld. Did Hades mean that he wanted to leave? Bufang narrowed his eyes. Young man, I hope the next time I get out I can taste that delicious spicy strip again. You should live a little longer, the Nether King said with a smile. After he finished speaking, streaks of black light appeared beneath his feet. A massive array formed by nether energy lit up. From within the formation, shadows slowly rose one after another. Chapter 6:21. Hades's eyes moved, looking at the shadows standing at the corners of the formation. He gently sighed. Apparently, the ghouls on the formation gave him a lot of pressure. The current Bufang had already lost the strength to use the Overlord's seventh blade again. The wind blew, fluttering Bufang's vermilion robe. The light arrow descended from the sky with surging murderous aura. The reason Bufang could use the Overlord's seventh blade to subdue Jiao Ya's god-slaying bow was because of the gourmet array and his formidable knife skills. The god-slaying bow was a divine weapon from the heavenly spring holy land of the hidden dragon royal court. Perhaps those ghouls would capture you, who had left the secret realm, and bring her back to the netherworld. The spicy strip sparkled with red light, and its fragrance assailed everyone's nostrils. At this moment, tens of thousands of people in the heavenly mist city could only gawk at Hades, whispering to each other. The palace master had a 50-50 chance against the Shura sovereign at his peak. Now that he had the god-slaying bow, the Shura sovereign, who was like a tiger that had grown wings, had become even more intimidating. The air seemed to tremble as it couldn't bear the formidable pressure. He looked at you, nodding thoughtfully. Hades's bribe seemed to have helped you get through this relationship, which allowed her to stay in the hidden dragon continent. That appearance seemed to be very familiar with it. This caused a blood-colored arrow of light to rapidly gather on the god-slaying bow and burst forth with terrifying power. Did this fellow change his nature? He endured the pain in his heart, giving the spicy strips to the shadows shrouded in darkness. Without Hades, how could he resist the little chef? He had never thought that they would forget about the god-slaying bow, which was extremely important. In the end, the Shura sovereign had gotten it. Just as the light arrow was about to hit Bufang's body, Bufang's figure flickered. The ghouls on the teleportation formation seemed to have a natural restraining effect on the netherworld creatures. Even the netherworld woman was afraid of those existences. The experts of Heavenly Mist City stood on the city wall, watching the Shura army with vigilance. In Heavenly Mist City. Just what kind of eyes were these? She really didn't know. You obviously don't want this. What's going on? Nangong Wuk widened his eyes and looked at everything in bewilderment. He looked at the black aura that seemed to be dragging him into hell. He was puzzled. Everyone's faces were drained of blood. Because when they looked at the Azura sovereign who was controlling the god-slaying bow like a fiend god, all of them felt despair. When the experts on the Heavenly Mist City's city wall saw this scene, their faces instantly shrank. All the blood drained from their faces, as though all the energy in their bodies had been sucked out. Rumble. If the Nether King hadn't shown his divine might and killed the hidden dragon royal court's expert with one palm, no one would have known that this fellow was a peerless expert of the netherworld just by looking at his current appearance. When those gazes fell on you, Yu's delicate body shivered. The great character who could manage the ghouls had a position in the netherworld that wasn't lower than Hades's. He might even be higher. Hades disappeared. No one knew what Hades was doing at that moment. The arrowhead of the blood-red light arrow finally fell. With a whistling sound, the arrow was shot. The Nether King stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His figure had become extremely tall, and the nether energy surrounding his body accentuated his figure, causing him to finally look like the true lord of the netherworld. Inside the array, there seemed to be black lightning flashing unceasingly. However, when he saw Hades take out the spicy strip, he was a little skeptical. Bufang frowned. He reached out his hand, pulling Yu's figure. With the vermilion robe, Bufang was invincible. What is little Ha doing? Bufang looked at Yu suspiciously, asking. The Shura sovereign had chosen to kill Bufang. There's also the netherworld. I'll have to go there eventually, Bufang muttered. The Pill Palace's master, Luo Danqing, stiffened, looking at the scene with a solemn face. The Shura sovereign's fatal strike. Was that still the same era who chatted with him and ate old booze dishes? Bufang looked at the direction where the array had disappeared, his eyes twinkling. After the ghouls had sunk into the array, everybody exhaled in relief. However, you couldn't block that attack. No matter what, they weren't in the secret domain. After a long time, the ghouls in the array had eaten all the spicy strip. They turned to look at Yu, who was standing on the city wall. After he got the god-slaying bow, his first target was Bufang? Those are the ghouls who are in charge of the teleportation array in the netherworld. Any creature in the netherworld who wants to go through the teleportation array must get the permission of those ghouls. And those ghouls are under the command of an important character in the netherworld, said Yu. This divine weapon seemed to be specialized in restraining the netherworld creatures. Even Hades was stimulated when he caught the arrow with his bare hand. The nether energy in his body spread out. A terrifying shockwave rose up and rushed straight into the sky. Obviously, that was impossible. He was so angry that his liver hurt. Under the dumbfounded eyes of the crowd, he walked to the phantom figures and gave them the spicy strip. From his appearance, he looked like a local scoundrel who was bribing people. The light arrow was aimed at Bufang, who was wearing the vermilion robe and standing on the city wall of Heavenly Mist City. After saying that, the few shadows picked up the chilly strips and started to chew on them. As they chewed, they gave the Nether King a thumbs up. The formation formed by Nether Aura, coupled with the figures that were emerging from the formation, caused everyone to be stunned by the scene that suddenly appeared. He was an expert of the hidden dragon royal court. He was a decent man, but he was smashed to death by an indecent netherworld creature. Suddenly, the sound of thunder reverberated in the sky. Nethery's long black hair fluttered in the wind. Her face was ice cold and her eyes had turned pitch black at this moment. She was going to use all her strength to block the blood-colored arrow of light that was falling from the sky. It was as if she could see a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood in her eyes. If Jiaoya, who was smashed to death, were to come back to life and see this scene, he would be so angry that he would vomit blood. That terrifying fluctuation seemed as though it was about to cut Bufang's skin into pieces. The Shura sovereign slowly took a step forward. His feet stepped on the broken stones and he crouched down slightly. He picked up the pitch-black deicide bow that had fallen to the ground. His laughter reverberated. His eyes scanned the surroundings. The tip of the light arrow swept through everything as if it was aiming at everyone. Without Hades, how could they stop the Shura sovereign, whose aura was getting stronger and stronger? A fatal strike? Or the Pill Palace's master, Luo Danqing? She was the netherworld woman of the netherworld. Naturally, she knew everything about the netherworld. With the Shura sovereign's cultivation base, getting the god-slaying bow was like adding wings to a tiger. With Hades's crazy attitude toward the spicy strips, he had chosen to give them to the others. Just like that, he faced the light arrow that was descending from the sky. His hand reached into his sleeve. A moment later, he took out several spicy strips that emitted a fragrant aroma. That was even more impossible. Tap tap tap. The Nether King of the Netherworld. This old fellow is interesting. Was he still Little Ha, who held a spicy strip in his hand every day? The eyes of those ghouls shot out a scarlet light, which made people shudder when they sensed that scarlet light. Ridiculous, once the god-slaying bow aimed at them, they would have goosebumps all over their bodies. They would feel a thick sense of danger. While sinking, he waved his hand at you. He didn't know why Hades wanted to leave. Everybody was speechless. In the sky, the blood-red light arrow had congregated completely. Blood-red lightning and thunderbolts expanded around the light arrow. Even if it was you, Bufang could feel her tense body relax. Her red lips parted as she exhaled. However, it was what he wanted. Moreover, the god-slaying bow was in his hands, which made him feel more satisfied. The possibility of Luo Danqing stopping the Shura sovereign was even smaller. Yu's pitch-black eyes were incomparably deep. Light sparkled, but eventually she answered seriously, "I don't know." She took a deep breath, her face cold. Hades' arrow was covered by the formation. Nether energy continuously twirled around his body. Bufang also felt his body being restrained by a terrifying pressure. The Shura sovereign's body shot up, and an excited smile appeared on his evil face. His body formed a bow, and the muscles on his arms bulged like a horned dragon. There was energy flowing on them, and the true chi flowed into the god-slaying bow. If that was the case, perhaps she would lose her freedom. Bufang nodded. He didn't know much about the netherworld. Those ghouls were really terrifying, and those ghouls' target seemed to be nethery. As the Shura sovereign laughed, Bufang couldn't help but frown. If the Shura sovereign could control the god-slaying bow, it would be really tough to deal with him. He even hugged the phantom's shoulders like they were brothers, whispering something to them. Although the Shura sovereign was frightened, the shock in his heart gradually calmed down. Hades waved his hand when he was about to leave. Apparently, there was a deeper meaning, and Bufang seemed to understand it. Rumble. Without Hades, who could deal with the Shura sovereign? However, when the corpse ghoul's gazes became more ferocious, the Nether King stood in front of them. The corner of his mouth twitched as he grabbed the corpse ghouls and entered the teleportation array. Everybody was frightened. After the Shura sovereign saw that, the corners of his mouth twitched. He was a little speechless. His true energy was empty, and the gourmet array was used up. Counting on that dark horse chef to restrain the Shura sovereign was just a fool's dream. His little Ha wasn't like that. Was the little chef from the dark horse going to be killed this time? The Shura sovereign's face changed. Was he going to ask owner Bu to restrain him? The Shura sovereign laughed. Only Hades knew what was going on. When the Shura sovereign pulled the god-slaying bow, its power seemed to be even more terrifying. Finally. Chapter 622. A tremendous aura diffused from the heavenly mist city. That pressure made the Shura sovereign, who was hovering in the sky with the god-slaying bow in his hand, frightened. How could there be such a terrifying aura in the heavenly mist city? Didn't the Nether King already leave? The light arrow whistled, almost piercing through Bufang. That terrifying aura stirred up a gust of wind, blowing away the sand and stones on the city wall. So what if it had a terrifying aura? The Shura sovereign's eyes were bright as he gazed into the distance. With the god-slaying bow in his hand, he was so confident that a heroic spirit was about to burst out of his chest. As the light arrow shot down, there seemed to be blood-red lightning moving around the arrow. The gust of wind blew Bufang's hair on his forehead. Bufang's eyes were indifferent as he looked at the light arrow. But even so, his skin still tightened slightly, and he felt a chill run down his spine. The power of that arrow was too terrifying. With the Shura sovereign's cultivation base, the god-slaying bow's arrow could even hurt a divine soul realm expert. If Bufang had the support of the gourmet array and the Overlord's 7 blades, he might have a chance to block it. However, at this moment, Bufang had lost the power to resist. Buzz, the terrifying aura in the heavenly mist city rolled again. Everyone seemed to be slightly startled, as if an invisible dog's bark resounded in their ears. A moment later, a dog slowly walked out of the heavenly mist city with elegant cat-like step. The fat on the dog's body jiggled as it walked. The black dog leaped in the sky, walking with cat-like step. With each step, it seemed like the ground had shrunk to an inch. Less than 2 breaths later, the Lord Go approached Bufang, standing behind Bufang. The blood-red light arrow had just fallen. The Lord Go looked drowsy. One of his eyes hadn't opened yet. Apparently, he was still sleeping. He had rushed over. He opened his mouth and let out a long yawn before unhurriedly raising his chubby dog paw. The dog's paw blocked in front of Bufang, waving gently in front of the blood arrow. Boom! As the blood arrow fell, it immediately caused a violent wave of air. On the city wall, the pupils of many people shrank as they were forced to take a few steps back by the terrifying aura. Everyone's faces were filled with shock. However, when they saw the scene in front of them clearly, they were even more terrified. That mighty blood-colored arrow of light actually failed to shatter the dog's paw. Instead, it was blocked by the dog's paw and floated in front of it, unable to advance at all. The Shura sovereign narrowed his eyes and took a deep breath. A dog, a powerful dog. The Shura sovereign's heart stirred. Could this dog be the black dog from the restaurant? That black dog that killed the experts of his ancient Shura city? That legendary and incomparably powerful black dog? Looking at the Lord Go, the Shura sovereign's eyes had a beam of light moving around. This time, Jiao Ya's target was that dog. A dog from the netherworld. And the reason why Jiao Ya was confident in dealing with that dog was because of the god-slaying bow in his hand. With the god-slaying bow in his hand, the Shura sovereign thought that he could fulfill Jiao Ya's unfulfilled wish. Hunting down that netherworld creature, perhaps he could earn the recognition of the big shots in the hidden dragon royal court. As for Jiao Ya's dead body, the Shura sovereign didn't care about him. That bastard was really unlucky to meet such a terrifying existence. With just one slap, he was smashed into minced meat. Hades's intimidation had made the Shura sovereign shiver in fear. Encountering Hades was Jiao Ya's misfortune. The Lord Go didn't say anything. While yawning, he squeezed the light arrow with his paw. Instantly, the light arrow was crushed, turning into countless light dots that scattered everywhere. After crushing it, the Lord Go waved his paw, making the light dots retreat. After everything was done, the Lord Go turned to look at Bufang. Bufang, kid, you never let this dog rest easy. The magnetic voice of the Lord Go arose, lingering in people's ears. While they were frightened, their faces became odd. The vermilion robe on Bufang's body fluttered, and the light on it slowly disappeared. Seeing the Lord Go, the nervousness in Bufang's heart disappeared. Earlier, the Lord Go seemed to have sensed the aura of the ghoul. "Where did that stinky thing go?" asked the Lord Go. Standing behind Bufang, you looked at the Lord Go, whose fat was shaking when he mentioned the ghouls. She said, "They got out of the transportation formation and took Hades away." "What? They took that clown back? Why didn't they take you, the netherworld woman? According to that group of stinky things, they would have taken you away." The Lord Go wiggled his tail skeptically. You was bewildered. She didn't know. Perhaps it was because of the spicy strip. It seemed Hades had bribed those ghouls with some spicy strip. That's why they didn't take you away. The last gesture from Hades seemed to be meaningful. The Lord Go looked at Yu's bewildered face, arching his brows in astonishment. Perhaps that clown, the netherworld king, had played some tricks again. "Are those ghouls strong?" asked Bufang, frowning. The ghouls of the netherworld sounded scary. "Strong?" The Lord Go rolled his eyes, rolling his eyes at Bufang. "This Lord Go can slap one with one paw. Do you think I'm strong?" said the Lord Go casually. "All right, from the tone of the Lord Go, those ghouls of the netherworld should be trash." The Shura sovereign stood in the sky, his aura fluctuating unceasingly. He felt that he was being ignored. From the moment that dog had appeared until now, it didn't even look at him. Was it looking down on him? His aura was so intimidating. Standing in the sky, he was like a bright star. "You dog. You're really savage. Worthy of being a netherworld creature." The corners of the Shura sovereign's mouth rose, revealing a cold smile. He suppressed his aura, and the blood-colored soul ladder appeared above his head, blooming with radiance. The Shura army down below saw that, their faces filled with excitement. They wielded their weapons and roared, their auras rising unceasingly. Roar, roar, roar. The experts on the heavenly mist city paled. At this moment, the Shura army's aura was so strong. It was even more aggressive than the first wave. The energy in the Shura sovereign's hand surged, and the god-slaying bow bloomed with radiance. The muscles on his hand were like dragons as he pulled the bow. Instantly, an ear-splitting boom resounded. The light arrow hovered above the bow. The arrow aimed at the Lord Go, who was standing in front of Bu Fong. The Shura sovereign grinned, his smile playful. It seemed he had heard the Shura sovereign's voice or sensed the formidable aura from the latter. Lord Go lifted his dog head, looking at the Shura sovereign in the sky, who was wearing battle armor and had a monstrous aura. The dog's mouth twitched as he said, "Bu Fong, kid, who's that moron?" The Shura sovereign's eyes shrank, his murderous aura thickening. That black dog was so savage. He dared to scold him. A netherworld creature, right? Then, let this sovereign hunt you down. The Shura sovereign smiled coldly. A moment later, his hand loosened and the light arrow roared, tearing the air. After that, the Shura sovereign's hand flipped, and several black iron arrows appeared in his hand. He knocked them on the longbow. "You want to kill this Lord Go? Who gave you the courage?" The Lord Go was speechless. As the light arrow descended, although its might was a little stronger than before, Blackest still stretched out its paw and slapped at the void. That arrow dispersed. Another arrow dispersed. 3 iron arrows roared, forming a triangular formation, aiming at the Lord Go. On the black iron arrow, there was a mysterious brilliance shining. Those iron arrows were Jiao Ya's god-slaying arrows. Those iron arrows were used to kill the netherworld creatures. Those light arrows were just a disguise. The real killing weapon was the black god-slaying arrows. The Shura sovereign was determined to kill the 3 god-slaying arrows. He had to kill the Lord Go. The Lord Go lifted his dog head, wagging his tail. Looking at the 3 god-slaying arrows, he squinted. "You want to kill this Lord Go? Are you insulting the Lord Go?" Black lifted his head, opening his mouth in just a blink of an eye, as if he wanted to swallow the sky, covering the sun. Chapter 6:23. A dog barked. It was deafening. The dog's mouth opened wide as if it wanted to swallow the entire world. That terrifying power made people shiver. The 3 iron arrows whistled through the air, twisting the void. They left behind bright trails in the sky as they ruthlessly bombarded the wide-open mouth. Everyone's eyes widened as they watched the scene unfold before them. Their hearts were all tensed up. The power of those iron arrows was really terrifying. Even the terrifying Hades had suffered a great loss from those iron arrows. Could this black dog really deal with them? Almost everyone in Heavenly Mist City knew about the black dog in the Cloud Mist restaurant. It was a terrifying existence that had smashed the Shura sovereign's clone with a single roar. But now it was facing the Shura sovereign in his peak condition. His fighting prowess wasn't something that the clone could compare to. Hence, everybody was very curious about this collision. The Shura sovereign's eyes became deep and profound. He gazed at the black dog, which had opened its monstrous mouth. The power of the god-slaying Bao's god-slaying arrow shouldn't be weak. According to common sense, this black dog should be dead. However, shortly after, everybody's eyes widened, their faces dumbfounded. They realized that all of their guesses were wrong. That black dog wasn't trying to swallow the iron arrows. Its mouth was wide open, revealing many ferocious fangs that sparkled with a sharp radiance. A wild roar rang out. That ear-splitting bark contained a terror that made people's hearts tremble. The 3 iron arrows were blown away by the strong wind caused by the dog's bark. The 3 iron arrows lost their balance in the void and crashed into something. Instantly, the sky exploded. The shock waves from the explosion spread toward the Shura sovereign. His face stiffened. His body flickered as he dodged the shockwave. That black dog was so strong. That dog's bark! The god-slaying arrows couldn't even get close to his body. The Shura sovereign furrowed his brows and stared at the Lord Go. The Lord Go's huge mouth returned to its original chubby appearance. He stuck out his tongue lazily. The Lord Go lazily glanced at the Shura sovereign and curled his lips in disdain. Bufong stood behind Lord Go, the corners of his mouth curling up as he glanced at Shura sovereign. The Shura sovereign's lungs nearly exploded from anger when he saw the actions of a man and a dog. Because this gaze was too disdainful. He, the Shura sovereign, had never suffered such humiliation before. The anger in his heart surged, and his eyes turned ferocious. He let out a long howl as his chest puffed up. Holding the deicide bow, he pulled the bowstring to its fullest and aimed it at the Lord Go with the iron arrow knocked on it. Swish, swish, swish. Iron arrows rained down from the sky, shooting towards the Lord Go. However, the Lord Go was finally impatient. He raised his trembling paw, waving it at the Shura sovereign in the sky. Instantly, the phantom of a giant dog paw emerged behind the Lord Go. It gathered and pounded at the Shura sovereign in the sky. When the iron arrows touched the Lord Go's paw, they all exploded. Sharp energy diffused everywhere. However, it did not stop the dog's paw in the slightest. The paw continued to ruthlessly smash down, causing even the air to tremble. The Shura sovereign's eyes shrank. He stomped his feet, trying to dodge. However, he was frightened to find that the dog paw was about to reach him. He couldn't dodge it. Boom! Under everyone's shocked gazes, the Shura sovereign was slapped down from the sky and smashed into the ground, causing the entire ground to tremble. "You're too noisy," the Lord Go said indifferently, his gentle and magnetic voice echoing around. The phantom of the dog paw disappeared. However, it left a terrifying paw mark on the ground. The Shura sovereign slowly crawled up from the ground. His helmet was smashed by the dog paw. His black hair was disheveled. He looked a little dispirited. He clutched the god-slaying bow, gritting his teeth. His heart was burning with rage. That black dog dared to slap him down like a fly. He scanned around and found that the Shura army's excitement was extinguished. Everyone was looking at the black dog in fear. When the Shura sovereign was slapped to the ground, it was the same as slapping the Shura army's morale. The Shura sovereign was the source of their morale. The Shura sovereign was ferocious, so was their morale. When the Shura sovereign was weak, their morale was weak too. Compared to the Shura army's weak morale, the people of Heavenly Mist City seemed to have received a shot of adrenaline. They were all excited. Even the Pill Palace's master, Luo Danqing, looked at the Lord Go in fear. That dog! What kind of divine being was it? How could it be so terrifying? Boom! The Shura sovereign bellowed, drawing his sword. The Shura sword buzzed as if it had become agitated. The sword energy surged around. The Shura sovereign's hair was disheveled. His sharp eyes gazed at the Lord Go. He put away the god-slaying bow in his hand. This god-slaying bow, which was used to kill netherworld creatures, didn't seem to have any effect on the black dog. If that was the case, he would use brute force to defeat this black dog. Shura sword out. Both of his hands swung. A moment later, the Shura sword soared up into the sky. The tip of his feet touched the ground, and his entire body soared into the sky. The armor on his body bloomed with radiance, and his aura was like a rainbow. The blood-red Shura sword energy scattered in the sky as if it wanted to tear everything apart. Luo Danqing looked at the scene with a solemn face. He couldn't help but sigh. The Shura sovereign was worthy of his title. He was so overbearing. His cultivation base was so strong, and his sword intent was even stronger. The Emperor of the ancient Shura city was born to fight. The people of the ancient Shura city were a bunch of lunatics, a bunch of battle maniacs. In the past, the previous generation of Shura sovereigns had even dared to hold a sword and attack the hidden dragon royal court. Although he had been killed by the hidden dragon royal court in the end, his courage had won the respect of many forces on the continent. No matter what, the hidden dragon royal court was the strongest force in the hidden dragon continent. Until now, no one knew how strong the hidden dragon royal court was. They only knew that the hidden dragon royal court was immeasurably deep. After so many years, the hidden dragon royal court had only taken action a few times. However, each time it had shaken everyone. Of course, this time, Jiaoye could be a stain on the hidden dragon royal court's reputation. He was an expert of the hidden dragon royal court, who cultivated a top-notch cultivation technique and had a top-notch spirit weapon, but he was still killed. Not even his body was left. If this news was sent to the hidden dragon royal court, it would definitely stir up a commotion. However, it wasn't the main point now. At this moment, the Shura sovereign's aura was rising. He was enraged. He wanted to go berserk. He wanted to slash that black dog with his sword. The sword crossed the sky, slashing at the Lord Go. Swish. A moment later, the Lord Go rolled his eyes. His paw slapped and the sword energy exploded. The Shura sovereign's attack in the sky was smashed into pieces by the dog's paw. Boom. The Shura sovereign was pounded hard on the ground. The ground trembled and cracked. Everyone was silent. They were completely speechless. The ancient Shura city's expert's aura was smashed into pieces under the paw. This claw seemed to have smashed all their courage to attack. That black dog was really scary. Sword energy filled the sky. The Shura sovereign soared into the sky from the ruins. This time, his armor was in tatters. His eyes were filled with anger as he roared. Holding the Shura sword, he stepped in the air. He approached the Lord Go at a fast speed. The black dog tilted its head, swinging its paw again. There was a loud thud. The Shura sovereign was pounded into the ground again. Roar. The Shura sovereign was soaked in blood. He dashed out, his anger reaching its peak. Sword energy swirled around him, almost turning into a sword energy whirlwind. However, Blackie was still calm. Its exquisite paw slapped forward. The Shura sovereign's eyes shrank. He was pounded into the ground one more time, unable to resist at all. The more he was slapped, the more his heart wavered. It was a fear that came after a sense of helplessness. He found that he wasn't the black dog's opponent. The sword energy that he was so proud of couldn't even get close to the black dog's body. However, the Shura sovereign didn't know why, but his heart was supported. Again and again, he was pounded into the ground. His armor was broken, and his body was covered with wounds. He coughed blood, soaking his body in blood. Shura sword slash. Kill. Swinging the Shura sword, the Shura sovereign continued his attack. This time, the Shura sovereign's entire body was stamped on the city wall. There was a loud bang. The entire city wall was crushed by this stomp, and rubble flew everywhere. A terrifying aura emitted from the Shura sovereign's body. Everybody was frightened. Standing on the city wall, the Shura sovereign was the one who made them feel real fear. The Shura sovereign's aura was really terrifying. However, what frightened them even more was that the Shura sovereign, who was so terrifying, was in such a difficult situation. Again and again, he was pounded into the ground by the black dog. Die! The Shura sovereign's blood-red eyes gazed at the Lord Go. The Lord Go was leisurely, and the fat on his body shivered slightly. Bufang frowned, looking at the Shura sovereign, who was just inches away from him. Yu's face was cold, and she didn't seem to care. Nangong Wuk was so frightened that his legs trembled and his forehead was covered with beads of sweat. The Shura sovereign coughed out blood, but he was still very excited. He gripped the sword with both hands, stabbing at the Lord Go. The Shura sword sparkled with light. It was so exquisite that it wanted to pierce through the Lord Go. Everyone let out a cry of surprise. It was the Shura sovereign's ultimate attack. He had withstood so many attacks from the dog's paw just for this sword. One sword to behead the black dog. The The Shura sovereign's eyes were sharp, and divine light shot out. All of a sudden, his eyes froze. He looked in front of him in disbelief. There, his sword, which was brimming with vigor, was actually bitten by the black dog. Crack! A crisp sound echoed. The Shura sovereign's eyes almost popped out of their socket. The Shura sword was chewed into pieces like a biscuit. The black dog chewed for a while, then spat out the scrap iron with a disgusted face. This thing tastes terrible. It's so much worse than the sweet and sour ribs. The Lord Go commented. The Shura sovereign wanted to vomit blood. That was the Shura sword. His life weapon, the Shura sword. It was bitten into pieces by a dog. What made him terrified was that the black dog's aura suddenly soared in his eyes. It was incomparably terrifying, as if the sky had suddenly pressed down, causing the Azura sovereign to be pressed to the ground. He struggled to move his eyes. The black dog walked in front of him with elegant cat-like step. It raised its paw and slowly touched the Shura sovereign's head. Chapter 6:24. At this moment, the Shura sovereign finally felt the aura of death. That majestic pressure pressed down on his body, rendering him unable to move. Only then did he understand the true terror of the dog in front of him. Compared to the Nether King, this dog could only be stronger, not weaker. Hades's palm could turn Jiaoya into minced meat, and the dog in front of him could do the same to him. He was about to be smashed into minced meat by a dog. Just thinking about it was terrifying, and it was hard for him to accept it. In the Shura sovereign's eyes, the dog's paw was getting bigger. Eventually, it gently tapped on the Shura sovereign's forehead, as if it was gently caressing him. A moment later, everyone took in a breath of cold air. The entire city wall exploded with a loud bang, directly exploding, causing rubble to fly everywhere. Only darkness was left in the Shura sovereign's eyes. A moment later, he was completely swallowed by the darkness. The Shura army was bewildered. Everyone stood dumbly on the spot. They didn't know what was happening, and their eyes were numb. The Shura saintess paled, and the drumstick in her hand fell to the ground. She looked at the scene in the distance with a frightened face. The city wall was collapsing, and countless rocks rolled down from the top of the wall. However, that wasn't the key point. The key point was that a headless figure fell helplessly in the midst of the falling rocks, landing on the ground. A loud boom resounded, stirring up a cloud of dust. A moment later, it was covered by countless rocks. That was the Shura sovereign, their ancient Shura city's emperor. At this moment, he had become a headless corpse. His head was actually smashed by a dog's caress. It meant that the Shura sovereign was dead. Their emperor was dead. His head was smashed by a dog's paw. Oh God! The Shura army's eyes widened in fear. The scene from before was simply like a nightmare that instantly spread in their minds, causing everyone to feel a chill run through their bodies. Even now it was still the same. Their chests felt as if a heavy stone was pressing down on them, making it hard for them to breathe. They couldn't suppress the sorrow in their hearts. The feeling of their backbone collapsing made them feel like they were about to collapse. The Shura sovereign was dead. The Shura army collapsed. In that instant, the originally ferocious army instantly collapsed like a dam. Water surged out and filled everything. The Lord Go's paw was still hanging in the air. Its nose twitched a little, and its paw moved slightly before it slowly retracted. It glanced at the Shura sovereign buried in the rubble and yawned. "Hunting me, the Lord Go. You are too young." Lord Go flicked his tongue and strode back to the Cloud Mist restaurant with graceful cat-like step. Suddenly, an explosion sounded from the ruins that were covered by layers of rubble. A ray of light shot out from the rubble. It floated in the air. The light dissipated, revealing a simple and unadorned pitch-black longbow. It was the hidden Dragon Royal Court's deicide bow. At this moment, the patterns on the god-slaying bow were spreading out, emitting a blinding brilliance that was completely different from before. Down below, the Shura sovereign's corpse emerged. His broken body silenced everyone. The ancient Shura city's sovereign had died tragically just like that. Compared to Jiaoya's death, being stroked to death by a dog, the Shura sovereign's death was even more humiliating. A ray of light flashed. The saintess's beautiful figure jumped among the rubble. Shortly, she landed in front of the Shura sovereign. Looking at the Shura sovereign's broken body, she felt suffocated. A wave of sorrow covered her mind. She collected the Shura sovereign's body. The Shura saintess's eyes were wet. She dashed away, fleeing the ruins. In the air, the deicide bough bloomed with extreme radiance. A moment later, it trembled and let out a rumbling sound. From the bough, a seven-colored palm appeared. That palm crossed the sky, slapping down on the Lord Go's position. The might of this palm was extremely terrifying, and the ripples made everyone shudder in fear. How could there be such a terrifying fluctuation? This fluctuation wasn't something the Shura sovereign could compare to. Wait a minute, that bough belonged to the dead hidden dragon royal court's Jiaoya. At this moment, the longbow bloomed with extraordinary radiance. Without a doubt, the one controlling this longbow was an almighty expert of the hidden dragon royal court. That rainbow-colored palm rumbled, and the illusionary void seemed to be collapsing. Who is it? Who dares to kill the hidden dragon royal court's Heavenly Spring Holy Land's people? Do you want to become our Heavenly Spring Holy Land's enemy? The city walls, which were already crumbling, seemed to be on the verge of collapsing under that palm. However, the Lord Go turned his head. His dog tail swayed slightly, and an invisible aura spread out. In an instant, the entire city walls were stabilized, as steady as Mount Tai. The hidden dragon royal court's Heavenly Spring Holy Land. Many experts heard the voice reverberating in their ears, and their faces changed. There were many forces in the hidden dragon royal court, but only a few could be called a holy land. Even the Valley of Gluttony couldn't call itself a holy land in the hidden dragon royal court. How terrifying was the Heavenly Spring Holy Land! Some people who knew the inside story were even more frightened. The rainbow-colored palm slapped down on the Lord Go. The air shook as if it was about to collapse. Heavenly Spring Holy Land? What's that? The Lord Go snorted. Hearing that domineering voice, he secretly sniffled. A moment later, he opened his mouth and barked. That bark lasted for a long time, stirring up torrential winds. When the sound wave dissipated, it slowly retreated. The rainbow-colored palm, under this roar, directly collapsed. Cracks also appeared on the longbow in the void. Finally, with a cracking sound, it directly broke apart. That domineering voice also disappeared. The sound wave disappeared, and the wind weakened. A gentle breeze blew, blowing the yellow sand and blowing people's hair. Everyone felt as if it was a lifetime ago. The Lord Go turned around again, shaking his fat butt as he walked toward the Cloud Mist restaurant. Everyone looked at the disappearing figure of the Lord Go, and their bodies shivered in fear. They were actually afraid of a dog. If others knew this, they would think that they were a bunch of fools. The Lord Go left. He came arrogantly, and he left arrogantly, leaving only ruins on the ground. The experts of the Heavenly Mist City looked at the ruins in silence. A moment later, they surged up. Luo Danqing rolled his eyes. With a roar, he led the experts of the Heavenly Mist City, storming toward the Shura army. The Shura sovereign was killed, and the morale of the Shura army had fallen to the bottom. How could they be a match for the Heavenly Mist City's experts? With the charge of the alchemists, it was scattered. In the next instant, it was like an ant's nest collapsing, completely collapsing. The experts of the Heavenly Mist City were incomparably excited. Every single one of them had an excited expression on their faces. Their battle cries shook the heavens as they charged towards the great army below. They were like sharp spears that instantly sliced through the enemy. Bufang stood on the city wall, feeling the howling wind, which fluttered his hair. His eyes were calm as he watched the chaotic battle below. However, it was a one-sided situation. His eyes became deep. The vermilion robe fluttered. He casually waved his hand, turned around, and walked toward the restaurant. In the army, the Shura Saintess retreated as she fought. Her eyes gazed at Bufang's disappearing figure. She took a deep breath, her chest heaving up and down. Then, she left. However, her eyes seemed to want to engrave Bufang's figure in her mind. The Shura army collapsed. The experts of the Heavenly Mist City took advantage of their victory and chased after the Shura army. The Shura army collapsed. Again and again, the experts of the Heavenly Mist City didn't show any signs of weakening. They chased after the ancient Shura City's experts and chased them out of the Heavenly Mist City's territory. In the following days, under the leadership of the Pill Palace's palace master, Luo Danqing, the experts of the Pill Palace regained their dominance. They launched a counterattack against the fallen Heavenly Shine City and Heavenly Pill City. However, the result of this counterattack wasn't ideal. The Shura sovereign had fallen and the Shura army was defeated. However, when Luo Danqing attacked Heavenly Pill City, he encountered an expert's obstruction. That expert was too strong. Luo Danqing was forcefully suppressed. In the end, he had no choice but to retreat. It turned out that the experts of the Hidden Dragon Royal Court had made a move. The experts of the Hidden Dragon Royal Court had appeared and occupied the Heavenly Pill City and the Heavenly Mist City. Their properties were also occupied. Moreover, the Hidden Dragon Royal Court had sent out alchemists to teach alchemists and to organize the alchemists in the cities. Helplessly, Luo Danqing could only give up on chasing after the ancient Shura City's experts. He chose to retreat to Heavenly Mist City. Today, the Pill Palace only had Heavenly Mist City left. However, the Star Tower still existed. The Pill Palace still had a chance to rise again. When Bufang returned to the restaurant, he felt a little tired. Both his body and mind were exhausted. Sitting in the restaurant, he pulled a chair and sat down. Gently, he exhaled. 80 giggled as it stretched out its head. Striding forward, it walked in front of Bufang. Bufang gave it a look. Stretching out his hand, he grabbed 80 and rubbed its head. 80 was bewildered as it clucked. Could you not rub the head of a chicken that has dreams? Of course, no matter how much 80 protested, it was useless. Xiaopi's figure dashed through the air. Gliding through the air, it landed on Bufang's shoulder. Its eyes rolled around. Bufang stroked Shrimpy and let out a sigh of relief. He stood up from his seat and was about to walk toward the kitchen. Yang Meiji's giant body walked down from the second floor. She looked at Bufang in silence. After a long time, she nodded to Bufang and said, "Thank you for taking action. You didn't let the Shura army trample the Heavenly Mist City." Yang Meiji saw it clearly. If it weren't for Bufang, the entire Heavenly Mist City would have been trampled by the Shura sovereign's Shura army. Heavenly Mist City was Yang Meiji's home. Thus, she was sincerely grateful. Bufang looked at Yang Meiji in surprise. He didn't think that she would do that. Nodding indifferently, Bufang turned around and walked to the kitchen. As soon as he entered the kitchen, Bufang's steps halted. The system's serious voice resounded in his head. Chapter 625. The solemn and earnest voice of the system rang out, causing Bufang to be slightly dazed. Bufang's footsteps came to a halt, and he couldn't help but furrow his brows. Temporary mission: within 1 month, find 2 apprentice chefs. Mission reward: 1 fragment of the God of Cooking set. The system issued another mission. Since the last one, there hadn't been a new mission for a long time. The sudden appearance of this mission slightly surprised Bufang. Looking for apprentice chefs? Bufang rubbed his shiny chin, and the corners of his mouth slightly curled up. He still remembered that the system had issued this mission when he was in the imperial city of the Light Wind Empire. Now that this mission had appeared again, it was probably because the Heavenly Mist City's Cloud Mist restaurant was officially on the right track, and it was about time for him to leave the Heavenly Mist City. Bufang was very clear that if he wanted to increase his strength, he couldn't just rely on cultivation. What he needed was turnover, and if he wanted to increase his strength, he would need more turnover. If it was just Fong Fong's little store in the Light Wind Empire, it wouldn't be able to support him to increase his strength that much. Even if he had the Cloud Mist restaurant in the Heavenly Mist City, Bufang still felt that his cultivation was increasing too slowly. After all, the higher his strength, the more turnover he needed. Of course, Bufang could also complete the temporary mission issued by the system, and he would be able to obtain the vitality conversion reward to reduce the turnover. This way, he would be able to increase his cultivation faster. However, in the end, if Bufang wanted to increase his cultivation quickly, the most important thing was still turnover. Thus, Bufang was very clear that he would definitely open many branches in the future. Only by opening many branches at the same time could he achieve a steady increase in his cultivation. After accepting the system's mission, Bufang directly stepped into the kitchen. Walking in front of his own stove, green smoke curled around Bufang's hand, and the dragon bone kitchen knife appeared in his hand. After swinging the knife for a while, Bufang started to process the ingredient. At the same time, he would also practice his knife skills. The Overlord 13 blades trained in force. By relying on the superposition of force, he could unleash extremely terrifying attacks. Back then, by relying on the Gourmet Array and the Overlord 13 blades, Bufang relied on the strength of a Supreme Being who had broken through one of the Supreme Being's shackles to fight against a Divine Soul Realm expert. One must know that there was a qualitative difference between a Divine Soul Realm expert and a Divine Physique Realm expert. A true Divine Soul Realm expert could suppress a Divine Physique Realm expert with just a flip of their hand. This was because Divine Soul Realm experts cultivated the soul and the soul ladder. One step, one soul ladder, one step, one heaven and earth. Da-da-da. His hand trembled slightly, and the ingredients were chopped into pieces by his knife. With a swing of the knife, the ingredients flew up and fell into the prepared black turtle constellation wok. The oil in the wok scattered, and the smell of smoke filled the air. The true energy in Bufang's body permeated the air as he poured it into the black turtle constellation wok and began to stir-fry rapidly. Chi-chi-chi. From time to time, fiery sparks soared into the sky, reaching the roof and almost tearing the house apart. He scooped out the dish and poured it into the prepared blue and white porcelain plate. Steam billowed and a thick aroma filled the air. Bufang boiled the wok. After a while, he poured the aromatic sweet and sour ribs over the dish. A fragrant sweet and sour ribs was done. Nowadays, the ingredients Bufang had chosen for the sweet and sour ribs were of higher quality. The spirit energy and essence energy in the sweet and sour ribs couldn't be compared to the past. After cooking the sweet and sour ribs, Bufang didn't leave the kitchen. Instead, he continued to boil the dish. He poured the soaked dragon blood rice, stir-frying it in the black turtle constellation wok. The red dragon blood rice rolled like waves, rolling unceasingly. Steam billowed, and the aroma almost condensed into a substance. Finally, the dish was taken out of the wok, filling a blue and white porcelain plate. He prepared a small bowl for 80. As he carried the dish out of the kitchen, he saw Yang Meiji sitting in the restaurant. Of course, the restaurant was closed. It didn't open for business. After Bufang finished cooking, he decided to rest for a while. There were many things to do today. He needed to give Heavenly Mist City some time to settle down. The thick aroma filled the air. Yang Meiji couldn't help but squint. She smacked her lips, swallowing her saliva. It smells so good. Yang Meiji's eyes sparkled as she gazed at the dish in Bufang's hand. She knew Bufang's dish smelled good. However, since she returned to the restaurant, she had been restraining herself. She had been refining elixirs. She hated herself for being too weak. Her alchemy skills were too low. She couldn't help Heavenly Mist City much. When the enemies attacked, she wanted to, but she couldn't. Now that the enemies had retreated, Yang Meiji was in the mood to relax. Smelling the aroma, Yang Meiji couldn't help but feel hungry. Blackie, this is your sweet and sour ribs. This is your dragon blood rice. Bufang said calmly as he placed the two dishes in front of the man and the dog, who were already lying on the dining table. 80 strode forward with its strong chicken legs. It raised its chicken head and clucked. Bufang gave the small bowl of dragon blood rice to the little fellow. 80, who was tempted by the delicious food, lay on the side and happily pecked at the rice. Yang Meiji sat in the distance. When she saw you, her beautiful face showed excitement. A moment later, she reached out her hand to grab the bowl of dragon blood rice and shoved it into her mouth. The way she ate was totally different from her beautiful face. The way she ate was really terrifying. Yang Meiji was startled. Her eyes moved to the side and fell on the Lord Go. It was an extremely terrifying dog. When the Lord Go raised his paw and smashed the Shura sovereign's head, Yang Meiji finally knew how terrifying that fat, pig-like dog was. At this moment, she was watching such a terrifying dog eat. Especially at this moment, this dog didn't have the domineering appearance of the one who smashed the Shura sovereign's head with one paw. It was just a lazy dog. The lazy dog stretched its mouth, licking the porcelain plate and grunting. The fragrant sweet and sour ribs was rolled into its mouth. As soon as it entered its mouth, it chewed continuously. As he ate, he grinned happily, revealing the shredded meat between his teeth. Yang Meiji gawked and dropped her jaw. It was the first time she felt her view of the world was changed. Was this the demeanor of a legendary expert? It seemed to feel Yang Meiji's frozen eyes. The Lord Go, who was happily eating the sweet and sour ribs, froze. A moment later, its eyes narrowed, turning to look at Yang Meiji with sharp eyes. The dog's nose opened, puffing out white smoke. It bared its teeth, using its paw to pull the sweet and sour ribs to its chest. It was extremely vigilant. The corners of Yang Meiji's mouth twitched. Was the Lord Go protecting its food? Yu's mouth was bulging. As she chewed, her beautiful face became plump. Her beautiful eyes gazed at the dragon blood rice in the porcelain plate, munching unceasingly. This group of gluttons. She couldn't help but want to eat. Yang Meiji cursed inwardly. Bufang gently exhaled, pulled a chair over, and lay down on it. His whole body felt relaxed. This time, he felt a little tired after making a move. The true energy in his body was almost completely exhausted. Tilting his head, Bufang looked into the distance, his face emotionless. He was thinking about who he should trick to become an apprentice chef. After finding apprentices, he had to train them. That way they could run the restaurant well. 1 month wasn't a long time, actually. Who should I look for? That clown Nangong Wuk? I don't think it's feasible. That guy is the head of a family. He doesn't have time to practice cooking, Bufang pondered. He still had to find 2 apprentices, which gave Bufang a headache. Finding an apprentice chef was really a difficult thing to do. More importantly, even if he found a target, if the target's cooking talent didn't meet the system's requirements, he wouldn't be able to become an apprentice chef. Thus, this wasn't a simple task. Nethery held the porcelain plate, stuck out her tongue, and licked it clean. The surface of the plate even reflected the light. Bufang tilted his head, staring at you. You was a little surprised. Blinking her beautiful eyes, she carefully put down the porcelain plate. I won't lick it anymore. You said seriously. Bufang's gaze, which seemed as if he wanted to deduct her dragon blood rice, made her nervous. However, Bufang didn't plan to deduct Yu's appetite. Instead, he looked at Yu and suddenly had an idea. This woman was a netherworld woman, and she loved to eat. Would it be possible for her to become an apprentice chef? As he looked at Yu, Bufang's gaze became brighter. He felt that this was a good idea. Maybe you could really become a good apprentice chef? Wasn't it said that every glutton had the potential to become an outstanding chef? You were so outstanding and your appetite was so big. Maybe there would be a pleasant surprise. Bufang's gaze shifted and fell on Lord Go. Looking at Lord Go, whose fat was jiggling, Bufang directly ignored him. Forget about this fat dog. He was a lazy dog that only knew how to eat. Eat and sleep. Sleep and eat. Only this lazy dog knew how to eat. With this comparison, Bufang felt that it was really feasible to make you an apprentice chef. Hence, Bufang stood up from his chair and his eyes lit up. Wearing the vermilion robe, he slowly walked toward you. He pulled out a chair close to you and sat down. The muscles on his face twitched and the corners of his mouth twitched, revealing an ugly smile. You! Yang Meiji looked at this scene from afar. Yang Meiji, who was watching from afar, raised her brows. Why did Owner Bu have such a perverted smile? What did he want to do to the beautiful sister Netherworld? Yang Meiji was confused. She felt that she should do something. Sister Netherworld was really beautiful. Was Bufang going to do something bad? Yang Meiji stood up, and her huge figure instantly covered Bufang, giving him a huge pressure. Owner Bu, let go of Sister Netherworld. Yang Meiji said seriously. When Yang Meiji said that, she felt a sense of justice in her heart. Chapter 6:26. You widened her eyes, her long eyelashes quivering. She looked at Bufang suspiciously, then at Yang Meiji in the distance. Her bulging mouth chewed for a while. With a gulp, she swallowed the dragon blood rice in her mouth. Her rosy lips were stained with oil, which looked pretty bright and mesmerizing. Bufang had just come to you. Hearing Yang Meiji's roar, his entire body shivered. He turned his head in surprise, looking at Yang Meiji. Yang Meiji propped up her giant head, her brows arching. She looked at Bufang as if she was looking at a pervert. Bufang was bewildered. What kind of look was that? As the owner Bu, the god of cookery who wanted to stand at the top of the food chain in this fantasy world, how could he be a pervert? Bufang was too lazy to care about Yang Meiji. He turned his head and looked at you, who was chewing with her eyes wide open. You. How was it? Was the dragon blood rice tonight good? The muscles on Bufang's face twitched. Instantly, he forced a smile. That smile made Yang Meiji's hair stand on end. You listened to Bufang, nodding her head. Good, right? Come on. Since it's good, eat more. Bufang turned around, grabbing 80's porcelain plate. He poured the dragon blood rice onto Yu's plate, pushing it toward you. 80 raised his chicken head, which still had a grain of dragon blood rice on it. His face was blank. What happened? After swallowing the dragon blood rice in her mouth, she squinted her eyes and pouted. Her heart was filled with joy as she nodded her head. She reached out her greasy hand, grabbed a handful of rice, and continued to stuff it into her mouth. On the other side of the table, Lord Go opened his dog eyes, chewing the sweet and sour ribs. The aroma of the sweet and sour ribs diffused. Slurp, slurp. There was something wrong with Bufang today. Lord Go placed his paw on the table, chewing as he glanced at Bufang. The way Bufang tilted his head and smiled wretchedly made Lord Go even more suspicious. Bufang's smile was really creepy. The smile on Bufang's face gradually disappeared. The corners of his mouth twitched as he said to you seriously, You, if it's delicious, do you want to try cooking it yourself? However, when you heard what Bufang said, she immediately widened her eyes and shook her head. No, I just want to eat. You just need to eat. Bufang felt as if an invisible arrow had shot into his heart. As expected of the foodie Nethery. You can eat, you're awesome, alright. When Lord Go saw Bufang's deflated look, he suddenly let out a chuckle. Bufang touched his nose and glanced at Lord Go. Why? Do you want to try cooking sweet and sour ribs? No, I, Lord Go, only want to eat. Lord Go proudly shook his head and picked up a piece of sweet and sour ribs with his mouth. The rich fragrance of the ribs splashed instantly. Bufang's mouth twitched. This lazy dog. In the distance, Yang Meiji's expression relaxed. She immediately took a step back and sat on a chair, letting out a sigh of relief. It turned out that Bufang wanted her to cook for him. But Sister Nethery is so beautiful, I just need to eat. Yang Meiji thought to herself. Bu Fong was deflated twice in a row. He stood up helplessly. Every time he tried to find an apprentice chef, it was a very difficult task. His level of deception was still not good enough. However, he couldn't be blamed. After all, he was just a chef, a pure and unpretentious little chef. Bu Fong stood up. Although he was a little unwilling, he had no other choice. Facing these two gluttons, he was also helpless. He pulled a chair and sat in front of the restaurant. The sky in the distance gradually darkened. The setting sun revealed its beautiful colors, and the clouds rolled. It was too beautiful to behold. In the distant sky, several black birds flapped their wings, hovering in the sky as they flew away. There was also the faint sound of birds chirping in the air. Since the war had just ended, many people in Heavenly Mist City were repairing the city. Although the Heavenly Mist City's array would automatically repair the broken parts, if someone helped, the repair speed would be faster. After watching the scenery for a while, Bu Fong felt a little bored. He stood up, intending to return to the kitchen to practice cooking. Turning around, he saw Yang Meiji's giant figure. "Why are you still here?" Bu Fong asked, his face emotionless. Yang Meiji clutched her belly, smacking her lip. "I'm a little hungry. Owner Bu, can I order something?" Yang Meiji opened her eyes, looking at Bu Fong with a sincere face. At this moment, her nose was filled with the aroma of sweet and sour ribs and dragon blood rice. The aroma made her heart itch. She looked at Bu Fong, and as soon as she said those words, a deafening sound came from her stomach. She felt rather embarrassed. Bu Fong was a little surprised. He nodded, standing up. "Order whatever you want to eat. Tell me when you're done," said Bu Fong. Then, he turned around and walked to the kitchen. Yang Meiji's eyes brightened. She turned to look at the menu on the wall. Shortly after, Yang Meiji ordered red braised meat. She still felt that eating meat was the best. In the past, her father used to cook red braised meat for her. As soon as she saw red braised meat, she missed her father's cooking. Bu Fong walked to the door of the kitchen. He suddenly thought of something. His footsteps paused in front of the door, looking at Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai rubbed its round head with a dumbfounded look on its face. Bu Fong blinked, turning to look at Yang Meiji, who was sitting on the chair with her giant body. At this moment, Yang Meiji was immersed in her memories. Bu Fong rubbed his chin, the corners of his mouth twitching. He nodded meaningfully. That meaningful smile made Yang Meiji, who was immersed in her memories, shiver. She couldn't help but look around. After ordering Yang Meiji's red braised meat, Bu Fong stepped into the kitchen. As soon as he entered the kitchen, Bu Fong rolled up the sleeves of his vermilion robe, taking a deep breath. It was time to show his real skills. Bu Fong planned to cook the red braised meat well this time. He walked to the kitchen cupboard and carefully rummaged through it. In the end, he found a piece of spirit beast meat that wasn't of a very high grade. He placed the spirit beast meat on the table. This spirit beast meat was a type of second-rank spirit beast meat, a very common type of spirit beast meat. He lightly patted the pork with the back of the dragon bone kitchen knife, twirled the knife in his hand, and prepared to start cooking. Skillfully cutting the meat, he cut the spirit beast meat into pieces, placing them on a porcelain plate. The cut on each piece of meat was the same size. Bu Fong took out the black turtle constellation wok, rinsing it. Then, he opened his mouth, spitting out a mouthful of heaven and earth obsidian flame. As soon as the heaven and earth obsidian flame entered the black turtle constellation wok, the temperature inside the wok rose unceasingly. Shortly after, smoke arose from the wok. After pouring the oil over the wok, Bu Fong stir-fried some spirit herbs. Then, he added the pork and began to stir-fry. This time, he didn't cook the red braised meat according to the recipe. Bu Fong thought that if he wanted to conquer Yang Meiji, he had to cook something that would make people yearn for him. Thus, Bu Fong chose to cook the ordinary red braised meat. That kind of simplicity was the easiest way to move people. Sizzle! Flames shot up into the sky. After stir-frying a few times, Bufang poured the spirit spring water into the wok, stir-frying it for a while. The inside of the wok was shaking slightly, and a fragrant aroma was constantly diffusing out. As the aroma entered Bufang's nostrils, he couldn't help but squint his eyes. This aroma was very simple. Inside the cloud mist restaurant, Yang Meiji sat on her seat, looking expectant. 80 spread its wings, dashing on the ground. It was desperate because it finally got a hold of itself. Its dragon blood rice was stolen. But what could it do? As a chicken with dreams, it could only run to vent the pain in its heart. Really uncomfortable. That bad woman. She stole my chicken's rice again. Nethery narrowed her eyes happily as she floated in the restaurant, taking one step at a time. Lord Dog lay down under the Path Understanding tree, closed his eyes, and slept soundly. A piece of Path Understanding tree leaf slowly floated down, falling on Lord Go's nose. As he inhaled and exhaled, it drifted away. All of a sudden, an aroma wafted out of the kitchen. Bufang held a porcelain plate with steam rising from it. He slowly walked out of the kitchen. The slender and thin figure gradually appeared in the darkness. Yang Meiji looked at Bufang, her eyes brightening. Finally he came. Bufang looked at Yang Meiji, one hand holding the plate. The muscles on his face twitched. The corners of his mouth rose, revealing a smile that made Yang Meiji's hair stand on end. Old Yang, come and try my cooking. Bufang placed the red braised meat in front of Yang Meiji, saying. Yang Meiji's brows slightly arched as she looked at Bufang in surprise. Her heart was filled with suspicion. What happened to Owner Bu? Yang Meiji swallowed her saliva, turning her head to look at the red braised meat in front of her. A thick aroma arose from the red braised meat, assailing her nostrils. It made Yang Meiji's pores open, and the hunger in her stomach increased. Not only that, Yang Meiji looked at the red braised meat, smelling the familiar aroma. She was dumbstruck. She stared at the red braised meat, forgetting to pick up her chopstick. This familiar smell, Yang Meiji murmured. Chapter 6:27. The aroma rolled, assailing her nostrils. White steam rose from the dish. It was so dense that it covered people's eyes. Yang Meiji sniffed the aroma. She was bewildered. Her pupils shrank and her mouth parted. All the pores on her body opened. It's a familiar smell. Yang Meiji smelled the aroma. She hadn't eaten yet, but her eyes reddened. This smell hadn't appeared in her heart for a long time. She had almost forgotten the memory hidden deep in her mind. This smell made her sink. Old Yang, this is the red braised meat you ordered. Try it. Today, I cooked it with a special technique. Bufang pulled out a chair and sat on it. He raised his head and exhaled lightly as he said, You're right. Yang Meiji's mind returned. Her hands trembled as she picked up the chopstick. Looking at the rosy red braised meat that seemed to reflect light, she couldn't help but gulp. The chopsticks grabbed the red braised meat. The meat was a little tight. As she held it, the red oily juice oozed out and dripped. This familiar texture. Yang Meiji's heart shivered. She picked up the red braised meat and put it in her mouth. The closer she got to her mouth, the more flustered she became. She was afraid that once she put it in her mouth, it would clash with the taste in her memory. Her expectation would go up in flames. However, it turned out to be the opposite. A mouthful of red braised meat was stuffed into his mouth. When he bit down, the soft and tender spirit beast meat was slightly cooked, causing his pores to tighten at this moment. This feeling was wonderful. This texture was so familiar. Yang Meiji ate and ate. Crystal clear tears rolled down from the corners of her eyes. Yang Meiji was a little bewildered. She touched her face. She didn't know when she started to cry. The taste in her memory overlapped with the taste of the red braised meat. The taste that had been hidden in the depths of Yang Meiji's memory was completely stirred up and filled her mouth. Yang Meiji's entire being was shrouded in that memory. It was a snowy day. A sturdy little girl panted as she ran back from the outside. She squinted her eyes, her face slightly red from the heavy snow, and spots appeared on her face. Her hair was a mess, and her big eyes were rolling around. The Cloud Mist restaurant stood amidst the wind and snow. Outside the restaurant, snow swirled in the air, but inside the restaurant it was steaming hot. The aroma permeated the entire restaurant. The diners sat at the dining table with a smile on their faces. They chatted happily while picking up dishes with their chopsticks and putting them into their mouth. Oil splashed everywhere, and steam rose to the sky. That fiery feeling stunned the little girl for a moment. Then, the corners of her mouth curled into a knowing smile. The curtains of the kitchen were lifted and a burly figure walked out. He was wearing a greasy skirt. After wiping off the water stains on his hands, the burly man smiled at the girl. The girl widened her eyes, dashing toward the burly man. She threw herself in front of the man and hugged his thigh. Although the man's appearance was rough, he carefully tidied up the little girl's messy hair. After rubbing the little girl's head, he turned around and entered the kitchen. Not long after, the curtain of the kitchen was lifted again, and a fragrant aroma wafted out. The burly man was holding a steaming plate of red braised meat, which made the little girl want to stare at it. After finding a seat, the little girl clumsily picked up the chopsticks, picking up the red braised meat and stuffing it into her mouth. Her mouth was full of oil. The little girl was so happy. She reached out her sleeve and wiped the red oil off her mouth, making the little girl look like a cat. Far from them, the burly man smiled tenderly, watching the little girl happily eat the red braised meat. He lifted the curtain and went back to the kitchen. The little girl tilted her head, watching the burly man enter the kitchen. She smiled happily, then continued to eat the red braised meat. She opened her mouth and stuffed a piece of meat into it. Young Meiji sobbed. While eating the meat, she cried. Bean-sized tears rolled down her cheeks unceasingly. The memories in her heart almost drowned her. That feeling made her feel as though her heart was being squeezed. She was so sad that she wanted to cry. Bufang sat across from her, looking at Yang Meiji in silence. He didn't say anything, and he didn't want to talk. He just sighed with emotion. No wonder this woman was so strong. She grew up eating meat every day. How could she not be fat? She was a woman with a story. Bufang raised his hand. It was white and slender, reflecting the sunset's radiance. It made his palm look like it was covered with a layer of red light. Looking at his hand, Bufang's mouth rose. It was a pair of magical hands that could cook food that could move people's hearts. The magic of food was that it could not only satisfy people's appetite, but it could also satisfy people's spiritual and emotional needs. It was almost impossible to recreate the food and dishes in one's memory. The taste deep in one's memory could not be eaten a second time in one's life. Sometimes, when one's emotions and food were mixed together, it would make people unable to control their emotions. Today, Bufang used a special and simple method to cook the red braised meat, because he knew Yang Meiji's memory should have a memory of red braised meat. According to Yang Meiji, the original owner of the Cloud Mist restaurant, Yang Meiji's father, was an expert in cooking red braised meat. Red braised meat had always been the Cloud Mist restaurant's signature dish. Therefore, Bufang specially used a simplified method to cook the dish, which gave it a homely feeling. Although the taste might be a little different from the red braised meat cooked by Yang Meiji's father, this gap could be made up with a trace of memory. Why is this feeling so familiar? It's like my father's taste. Yang Meiji rubbed her teary eyes, stuffing the last piece of red braised meat into her mouth, sobbing. She looked at Bufang, her eyes full of emotion and sadness. Although it was similar, it wasn't. Her father was dead. The taste in her memory had completely disappeared. It's just a simple red braised meat. I don't know what your father's red braised meat tastes like. Bufang looked at Yang Meiji, speaking casually. Yang Meiji lifted her head, frowning. But this taste is really similar. This is the charm of delicious food. Don't you think it's magical? The corners of Bu Fang's mouth rose, saying. Yang Meiji licked the sauce on her plate clean. She lifted her head, looking at Bu Fang. She clenched her big fists, nodding seriously. Magical. Bu Fang's brows arched, the corners of his mouth rising again. If it's so magical, if delicious food is so charming, do you want to learn it? Do you want to eat this kind of delicious food that makes you remember it every day? Yang Meiji was bewildered. Sitting on the Netherworld ship, Yu, who was swinging her long, white legs, was also bewildered. 80, who was flapping its wings and walking back and forth on its chicken legs, also clucked and raised its head. You want me to learn how to cook? Yang Meiji rolled her eyes, looking at Bu Fang in disbelief. Oh my God, why did Bu Fang have such an idea? Yang Meiji was so surprised. Yang Meiji knew her level. She couldn't even cook a plate of egg-fried rice, so how could she cook real delicious food for others? If she really learned how to cook, she was afraid that she would scare away the hard-earned customers in the Cloud Mist restaurant. It was really rare that the Cloud Mist restaurant could develop to its current level, which was even more glorious than before. Thus, when Yang Meiji heard Bu Fang, she just waved her hands, her face panic-stricken. I can't. I don't want to learn. Bu Fang gently exhaled, leaning back on his chair, his eyes looking at Yang Meiji, who was panic-stricken. Don't you want to cook this delicious food yourself? This taste that you miss so much, the taste that belonged to your father? Yang Meiji was slightly bewildered when she heard Bu Fang's words. A conflicted expression appeared on her face once more. That's right. The Cloud Mist restaurant should have been inherited by her. But I want to use my abilities and do something for Heavenly Mist City. What I can do is only alchemy, Yang Meiji said. Her alchemy talent was really strong. If she really wanted to shine, alchemy was the best way for her to do so. However, the current Heavenly Mist City had become the main city of the Pill Palace, the place where all the grandmasters of alchemy gathered. Yang Meiji's alchemy skills could no longer shine among these grandmasters. Bu Fang didn't know this, but Bu Fang didn't panic. Although the profession of alchemy is mysterious, if you want to use your abilities, you don't just need to refine elixirs. If you learn how to cook, you can also reach that level, Bu Fang said. Yes. Moreover, I'm the champion of the Magical Hand Conference. To be honest, Bu Fang didn't really care about being the champion of the Magical Hand Conference. It was useless. The only thing he could do was to obtain a spot to enter the secret realm and bring back the glutton, Hades. However, in the end, the glutton, Hades, also left. That's right. After all, Bu Fang was the champion of the Magical Hand Conference. Yang Meiji was stunned. Her heart wavered once more. Maybe if she learned how to cook seriously, she would be able to shine? In the past, she chose alchemy because she felt that cooking had no future. After all, the so-called chefs in Heavenly Mist City had all changed professions. Looking at Yang Meiji, who was still wavering, Bu Fang leaned back on his chair and frowned. He felt that he had to use his ultimate move. He didn't believe that Yang Meiji would reject this move. If it wasn't necessary, Bu Fang really didn't want to use this move. Exhaling lightly, Bu Fang's expression became extremely solemn. It was as if he was talking about an extremely important matter. Yang Meiji looked at Bu Fang's expression and her heart tightened. She held her breath. Bu Fang looked at Yang Meiji and slowly said, Old Yang, you should know that Nangong Wuk comes here to eat every day, right? If you learn how to cook from me, maybe Nangong Wuk will eat the dishes you cook in the future. Since it wasn't enough to move her with emotion, he would use his body to seduce her. With Nangong Wuk around, seducing her was very easy. Yang Meiji's expression changed. When she heard Bu Fang's words, she immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. The light in her eyes flickered, and the sparks in her eyes instantly turned into bright stars. It was so bright that it was dazzling. I'll learn. Yang Meiji suddenly stood up from her seat and slammed her palm on the table. She didn't say anything and just shouted. Chapter 6:28. As soon as Yang Meiji heard Bufang's words, she agreed without any hesitation. Bufang's words were like the last straw that crushed the hesitation in her mind, causing her psychological defense to collapse in an instant. Just like that, all the persistence she had been holding on to turned into nothingness. Yang Meiji thought about the scene when Nangong Wuk picked up a piece of her red braised meat and put it into his mouth. That feeling melted her maiden heart. Imagining that scene, Yang Meiji's heart was filled with joy. Thinking about how Nangong Wuk would be impressed by the food she cooked, talked to her, and then walked to the peak of his life, Yang Meiji clenched her fists in excitement. Seeing Yang Meiji agree in less than 5 seconds, Bufang's mouth twitched. He was speechless. If he had known that Nangong Wuk was so useful, he would have used him earlier. That way, he wouldn't have to cook that emotional red braised meat. You won't regret it. Bufang looked at Yang Meiji and nodded. Then, do you think young Master Nangong will eat the dishes I cook? Yang Meiji blinked her eyes, gazing at Bufang with hope. Bufang was bewildered. He exhaled gently. You should practice your cooking skills with me. You will have a chance to conquer Nangong Wuk. I believe in you, said Bufang sincerely. His face didn't blush, and his heart didn't beat fast. Hearing this, Yang Meiji felt greatly encouraged. She nodded her head heavily. All right, you should rest well. Tomorrow you will practice cooking with me. From tomorrow onwards, you will be an apprentice chef of the Cloud Mist restaurant. Bufang stood up from his seat, straightening his vermilion robe as he said calmly. There was a hint of majesty in his voice. Yang Meiji clenched her fists. She suddenly felt excited. After eating and drinking to her heart's content, Yang Meiji turned around and ran upstairs. The entire Cloud Mist restaurant seemed to tremble slightly. The corners of Bufang's mouth rose as he watched Yang Meiji's cheerful figure leave. He turned his head to look at Nethery, who was sitting on the Netherworld ship with her slender, white legs dangling in the air. Once again, his face revealed a difficult smile. He walked to the front of the Netherworld ship and faced you. You, who was sitting on the Underworld ship, was actually the same height as Bufang. When their gazes met, Bufang's eyes were filled with solemnity. You, if you learn culinary arts from me, you will also have the chance to conquer Nangong Wuk. Bufang's eyes slightly brightened. If he borrowed Nangong Wuk's power once more, it might have a miraculous effect. You swung her fair and beautiful legs, and the cute toes on her sparkling feet trembled slightly. Her face was cold as she glanced at Bufang indifferently. No, I want to eat. Yu's red lips slightly parted, and her exquisite nose snorted. She didn't hesitate to say that. Bufang was bewildered. Her answer was too straightforward. She didn't even think about it. Although Nangong Wuk was a little amusing, at least his appearance was not bad. After all, he was Nangong Wuk, who had bewitched countless girls in Heavenly Mist City. You stared at Bufang, and her bright red tongue slowly licked her red lip. Conquering Nangong Wuk is meaningless. I just want to eat. Yu's body slightly jumped down from the Netherworld ship, and she stood in front of Bufang. Her long black hair cascaded down as she raised her head and looked at Bufang. All right, you can eat. You're awesome, Bufang said. Yu pouted, and she happily floated away. Her exquisite nose hummed a tune that was completely out of tune. Bufang heaved a sigh of relief. This woman had completely become a foodie. He hoped that she wouldn't become the next Lord Go. After all, this woman's figure was so beautiful. If she ended up like the Lord Go, it would be a sin. So, tomorrow, he would slightly reduce Yu's dragon blood rice. Bufang picked up 80, who was pacing on the ground, and angrily rubbed its head as he thought to himself. 80 was dumbfounded. As a chicken with dreams, why was its head always being rubbed? Was it because it was jealous of this chicken's beauty? The setting sun finally disappeared and the rays of light dimmed. A crescent moon slowly rose from the horizon, and it hung high in the sky, emitting a cold radiance. Bufang closed the store's door, and he returned to the second floor. He walked into his room. He first went to the bathroom to wash his body, and he walked out of the bathroom. His hair was still wet, and his skin was still emitting white steam. Leaning against the window, Bufang fell into deep thought as he felt the chilly night breeze. The system wanted him to find 2 apprentices, and it wasn't easy to find them. The system had to evaluate their cooking talent. So, tomorrow, he would have to evaluate Yang Meiji's cooking talent. As for the second apprentice, Bufang had a headache. Who would it be? Nangong Wan? Or someone else? Opposite the cloud mist restaurant, a group of people came in full swing. A store had just been bought. These people rolled up their sleeves, carrying a heavy wooden board from afar. They walked to the front of the store. Inside the store, lights flashed, and people came in and out. It was so busy in the middle of the night. Several people worked together, hanging the board in front of the store. A figure clasped his hands, walking out of the store. Zhou Tong's hair fluttered in the night breeze. He clasped his hands, and the corners of his mouth rose. He turned around to look at the board behind him. Gluttonous Immortals Restaurant. Not bad. A look of satisfaction appeared on Zhou Tong's face as a sharp glint flashed in his eyes. Since the other was a chef, he would use a chef's way to solve the problem. Didn't you have a business in Heavenly Mist City? Then he, Zhou Tong, would open a restaurant in Heavenly Mist City. He didn't believe that the Valley of Gluttony's first-grade chef couldn't compete with a small restaurant. He couldn't beat that black dog, but opening a restaurant wouldn't hinder that dog, right? It couldn't be that the black dog would walk like a cat to the restaurant and slap the restaurant, right? As a civilized dog, he had to be civilized. Tomorrow was the opening day of the Gluttonous Immortals Restaurant. Zhou Tong had prepared many dishes. He could already see the scene of the 10-mile-long street being attracted by his Gluttonous Immortals Restaurant. Be careful. Hey, you stupid guy. Put the chair in this position. Early in the morning, the sunlight tore the silent sky, shining its light. It sprinkled in front of Bufang's bed. Bufang squinted, slowly opening his eyes. Rubbing his hair, he sat on the bed and stretched his body. He was tired yesterday, but he had a good sleep this time. Yawning, Bufang used a velvet rope to tie his hair. He got off the bed and went to the bathroom to wash up. Then, he put on the vermilion robe and went downstairs. As soon as he went downstairs, he saw Yang Meiji sitting in the restaurant, her face excited. Owner Bu. Good morning. Yang Meiji's eyes brightened when she saw Bufang. She was so excited. His giant body stood up from his seat, looking like a tiger. You and Lord Go were already at the table. One man and one dog turned to look at Bufang, their eyes sparkling with hope. It was time to eat again. Bufang looked at the man and the dog, the corners of his mouth rising. He waved at Yang Meiji. Yang Meiji hurried to walk toward Bufang. System, how's Yang Meiji's cooking talent? Bufang couldn't help but ask in his mind. Yang Meiji, your cooking talent is suitable. You can train her as a cooking apprentice. The system's serious voice lingered in Bufang's ears for a long time. Bufang's eyes brightened. The corners of his mouth rose. He was so happy. Yang Meiji's talent was suitable. It saved him a lot of effort. Come, follow me to the kitchen. Bufang waved at Yang Meiji. I can go to the kitchen now? Yang Meiji couldn't believe it. She could go to the forbidden area of the kitchen? So magical. She could still clearly remember the terrifying gaze of the iron puppet in the kitchen. That sharp and burly gaze made her heart feel a little scared. She followed Bufang into the kitchen. As soon as she entered the kitchen, she was dumbfounded. She was really shocked because she found that the kitchen in front of her was totally different from the kitchen in her memory. This incomparably bright kitchen that seemed to be emitting light completely refreshed her view of the world. In her memory, the kitchen should be filled with the smell of grease, filthy, and pitch black. Bufang's kitchen had a faint aroma. It didn't smell greasy at all. Was this really a kitchen? And what were those strange things? Why had she never seen them before? And those cabinets, they were so exquisite. No wonder he didn't let her enter the kitchen. This kitchen had changed her view of the world. Let me show you the kitchen. Bufang didn't seem to mind Yang Meiji's astonished expression. When Xiao Xiaolong and Yu Fu saw this kitchen for the first time in Fang Fang's little store in the Light Wind Empire, their astonishment wasn't any less than Yang Meiji's. After introducing the kitchen to Yang Meiji for a while, she finally got used to it. You should stand far away and watch me cook. Later, I will assign you a task to practice. From today onwards, you will be the first apprentice chef of the Cloud Mist restaurant. Bufang said seriously. Yang Meiji nodded solemnly. Keep it up. Try your best to conquer Nangong Wuk. Bufang clenched his fists, his face emotionless. Yang Meiji felt like her heart was burning, and her skin was shivering. A moment later, Bufang started his cool cooking. This time, he didn't use the dragon bone kitchen knife. Instead, he used the kitchen knife in the kitchen. This time, he wanted to use ordinary kitchen tools to show his cooking skills. Knife light flashed, and sizzling noises echoed unceasingly. Shortly after, the ingredients were processed. Then, he put them into the wok and stir-fried them. The aroma of oil filled the air, and steam rose. As Yang Meiji was mesmerized, Bufang began to stir-fry the ingredients. That cool scene made Yang Meiji's jaw drop, and she couldn't close it. It was cooking. It felt so awesome. At this moment, in front of the Cloud Mist restaurant, Zhou Tong opened the restaurant's door. He walked to the door, looking at the long line in front of the Cloud Mist restaurant. The corners of his mouth rose. Behind him, a group of people was quietly preparing. They puffed out their chests, standing in front of the door. Zhou Tong waved his hand. Instantly, the red cloth covering the board was pulled down, and the three big words, Gluttonous Immortals Restaurant, emerged. Beat him. Gluttonous Immortals Restaurant. The corners of Zhou Tong's mouth rose. His hand flipped, and immediately, booming sounds echoed. Chapter 629. Zhou Tong squinted, waving his hand. The moment he pulled down the red cloth, the three big words of the Gluttonous Immortals Restaurant appeared. Behind him, the magic array that he had set up rumbled at the same time. Light shot up into the sky, dazzling the flames. The atmosphere became lively in just a blink of an eye. However, it was useless. Although the surrounding diners were surprised, they just looked at the Gluttonous Immortals Restaurant curiously. There was someone who dared to open a second restaurant in Heavenly Mist City? Did they really think that everyone was like Owner Bu? Zhou Tong was a little embarrassed. He opened his eyes, seeing the people around him looking at him as if he was an idiot. He was speechless. This bunch of idiots. What did they know? He, Zhou Tong, was a first-grade chef of the Valley of Gluttony. It was their fortune to be able to eat the dishes he cooked. If he didn't want to destroy that despicable little restaurant, would he, Zhou Tong, lower his status to open this restaurant? Wishful thinking. Today, this group of people still looked at him with suspicion. How could these idiots understand the Valley of Gluttony's first-grade chef? However, Zhou Tong just waved his hand, glancing at this bunch of idiots. He turned around and entered the kitchen. He was about to take out some delicious dishes to attract these diners. If he wanted to destroy the other side, it would be really hard if he didn't show his true skills. After all, according to his understanding, Bufang's Cloud Mist restaurant was really popular in Heavenly Mist City. The number of customers was really big. Thus, after a while, Zhou Tong walked out of the kitchen. At this moment, he was wearing the chef robe of the Valley of Gluttony. He held a wok in one hand and a kitchen knife in the other, walking to the door. He heated the wok and lit it up. He also ordered people to prepare the ingredients. Inside the wok, the hot oil boiled, releasing steam. The fiery red kitchen knife in Zhou Tong's hand spun, swinging its dazzling tail like a blazing broom. The ingredients were cut into small pieces under this kitchen knife. Zhou Tong's movements were really skillful. Moreover, his movements were like floating clouds and flowing water, making people feel that it was really beautiful. He cut the ingredients. Zhou Tong held the flaming kitchen knife and twirled it, then put it away. In the next moment, he prepared a large porcelain bowl and poured spirit energy into it. Then, he poured boiling hot water into the bowl. Zhou Tong did not care about the scalding heat inside. True energy covered his palm and he began to use a special technique. That cool kneading technique was dazzling and mysterious. The true qi around his body undulated continuously, as if it was dancing. This was a special technique used by the Valley of Gluttony to process flour. Every chef had gone through systematic training. In the Valley of Gluttony, there was a specialized school that specialized in training chef. Every chef in the Valley of Gluttony had graduated from that school. Whether it was Wenrincho or Zhou Tong, they were both students of the Valley of Gluttony Academy. There were even first-grade chefs among the students of that academy. After kneading the flour, Zhou Tong could not help but exhale. He raised his head and noticed that there were already quite a few people around him who were attracted by his actions. Many people were curious as to what dish he was cooking. After mixing the diced ingredients together, he then kneaded them together with the flour that was kneaded into a ball. Zhou Tong then threw a small ball of flour into the wok of oil. The oil in the wok was boiling and the white foam was rolling. The moment the ball of flour entered the wok made a sizzling sound. Oil splashed everywhere, and steam rose to the sky. The white foam rolled even more violently. In an instant, a wave of fragrance wafted out. That fragrance made the eyes of the surrounding diners brighten. They were extremely surprised. Many people looked at each other. It seemed like this restaurant was not ordinary. Yang Meiji watched as Bufang poured that spoonful of drunken sauce onto the sweet and sour ribs. Her face revealed an excited expression, and she was filled with admiration. Looking at Bufang's smooth movements and the way he used true energy during the cooking process, Yang Meiji was even more shocked. She always thought that cooking was much easier than refining pills. However, after watching Bufang cook, she knew that the things he used were much more than refining pills. It was really a skill and knowledge. It was not as simple as refining pills. When Bufang saw Yang Meiji's excited face, the corners of his mouth twitched. He took out a pitch-black and heavy kitchen knife from the knife case, handing it to Yang Meiji. As soon as she held the knife, Yang Meiji felt a heavy feeling. The true energy in her body seemed to be suppressed. Hold the knife. There are ingredients there. Today your task is to cut them all, Bufang said casually. Then, he picked up the sweet and sour ribs and dragon blood rice for the two foodies outside, walking out of the kitchen. Yang Meiji held the knife, her muscles twitching. This kitchen knife was terrifyingly heavy, and it continuously absorbed her true energy. How could it be so magical? Holding the kitchen knife, Yang Meiji walked to the spot Bufang had instructed her to. There were piles of radishes piled up like a small mountain. Did he want her to cut radishes? Moreover, she had to cut radishes for a whole day? Bufang walked out of the kitchen. Dense steam and thick aroma filled the air as he carried two dishes. The man and the dog, who had been waiting at the dining table, had their eyes brighten. After placing the sweet and sour ribs and dragon blood rice in front of Lord Go and Yu, the man and the dog couldn't wait to dig in. However, after eating a few mouthfuls, Yu found something wrong. She lifted her head, her long hair falling from her forehead. Her beautiful eyes gazed at Bufang. Bufang, why is there so little dragon blood rice? Yu asked seriously. Bufang wiped the water off his hands, then slowly walked to the bronze door. He opened the bronze door, letting in the sunlight, which warmed people up. Bufang didn't turn his head around. He just said casually, "You're a girl. You should eat less. Otherwise, you'll become as fat as a lazy dog." When Yu heard that, Her exquisite nose snorted. She was infuriated. Lord Go gobbled up the porcelain plate, looking bewildered. His mouth was still dripping with liquor. Did someone say something bad about Lord Go just now? Opening the bronze door meant that today's business had officially begun. However, what made Bufang suspicious was that the moment he opened the bronze door, a wave of thick aroma wafted over from a distance. That aroma was really fragrant. It seemed to have hundreds and thousands of twists and turns, making people sink into it. Bufang's brows slightly twitched. He smelled the aroma and stood at the entrance. The number of customers that day had decreased by a lot. Many people turned around and squeezed into the distance. What was going on? Bufang's heart was suddenly filled with doubt. He looked into the distance and saw that there were many customers there. Steam and aroma were rising from there. Could it be that someone was cooking there? Looking at the bustling scene, could it be that a new restaurant had opened there? However, it wasn't as if Bufang didn't have any customers. He still had a lot of customers. After all, Bufang's reputation in Heavenly Mist City was quite great. It wasn't something that a newly opened restaurant could suppress. Thus, Bufang didn't care much about it. After standing there for a while, he turned around and entered the kitchen. Nangong Wuk had arrived. He rushed in with a vigilant face. When he saw Bufang, he took a step forward. "Old Bu, someone is causing trouble there." Nangong Wuk lowered his voice and said to Bufang. "Oh." Bufang didn't mind. As a young man who wanted to stand at the top of the food chain in this fantasy world, how could Bufang be afraid of a competitor? Since the other side wanted to cause trouble, he would let them do it. "Line up. It's time to open for business. If you want to order something, I'll tell you," said Bufang. Then, he turned around and entered the kitchen. Nangong Wuk looked at Bufang's back with a face full of admiration. As expected of old Bu, he was domineering and didn't fear any opponent. Nangong Wuk found a seat and ordered a bowl of Buddha jumps over the wall soup. Every day, he would order a bowl of Buddha jumps over the wall soup. The aroma became thicker and thicker, filling people's mouths and noses. Many customers in the line outside felt their hearts itch. They were attracted by the aroma, so they turned around and entered the restaurant opposite. The Gluttonous Immortals restaurant was a newly opened restaurant. In front of the restaurant, a group of people were holding golden deep-fried meatballs and eating them happily. With a bite, the meatball emitted dense steam, and the ingredients inside trembled. That rising deliciousness made many diners swallow their saliva. In just a short while, the restaurant was surrounded by a bustling crowd. Zhou Tong looked at this scene with satisfaction. As expected, with him, Zhou Tong, making a move, how could he not deal with the little chef opposite him? No matter what, he was a first-grade chef in the Valley of Gluttony. Any dish he made was enough to become his signature dish. This is just the first step. There are still many surprises waiting for you. Zhou Tong's gaze looked in the direction of the Cloud Mist restaurant. Looking at the gradually decreasing number of customers in front of the restaurant, the corners of his mouth couldn't help but rise. The number of customers was decreasing, but they were still there. Zhou Tong's goal was to destroy the Cloud Mist restaurant. He wanted to make it so that there wouldn't be a single customer in front of the restaurant, or at least, only a few customers. Otherwise, how could it be considered as destroying the restaurant? Zhou Tong was very confident. As a chef from the Valley of Gluttony, which was extremely competitive, he understood the principle of competition. To squeeze out a small restaurant, it was as easy as flipping his hand. Bufang walked out of the kitchen, his brows slightly furrowed. This was because he could clearly feel that the number of customers today had decreased by at least half. There was no doubt that these fewer diners were attracted by the restaurant across the street. Bufang pulled a chair and sat in front of the restaurant. The popularity of the restaurant in the distance did not seem to have decreased, and it was still in full swing. Bufang looked on expressionlessly. Yu strode forward with her sparkling feet, standing beside Bufang, her black hair hanging down. Bufang turned his head, looking at you, and raised his head. You glanced at Bufang, lightly snorted, and then turned to leave. Obviously, this woman was still angry at Bufang for reducing her dragon blood rice. The corners of Bufang's mouth twitched. This woman, all of a sudden, when Bufang was looking at Yu's back, the system's familiar voice suddenly rang in his head. Temporary mission. As a young man who wants to stand at the top of the food chain in the fantasy world, the prestige of the god of cooking must not be challenged. To any provocation, you must fiercely fight back. Please destroy the restaurant opposite you within 3 days. Mission reward: paper-wrapped fish recipe. Chapter 630. Bufang looked at Zhou Tong's back as he left. His face was as calm as an ancient well, but his brows were slightly furrowed. The gluttonous immortals restaurant, which had been bustling for a whole day, was still bustling. However, the customers were gradually dispersing. Was that iron lump a monster? She had painstakingly cut the radishes for half a day, and they were all sucked into the wok just like that. The system was also capricious. When there was a task, it would come one after another. When there was no task, it was so bored that its balls hurt. He waved his hand, and the black turtle constellation wok instantly flew out, soaring in the wind. Bufang said. After Bufang had done all that, he carefully selected a bunch of herbs from the kitchen cupboard, placing them on the table. He walked to the restaurant's front door, where Bufang was standing up from his chair, yawning as he prepared to close the bronze door. Bufang exhaled. It seemed like it was time to show his real skills. When Rinchou was his role model. That idiot. He had used the name of the Valley of Gluttony's wanderer to duel with others. More importantly, he had lost the duel and lost his kitchen knife. He would let that kid be arrogant for a few more days. When the time was ripe, he would take out his secret dish. It would definitely ignite all the customers. At that time, the Gluttonous Immortals restaurant would become the #1 restaurant in Heavenly Mist City. Taking a step forward, Whitey arrived in front of the pile of radish fragments. With a twist of its stomach, a pitch-black hole appeared and sucked all the radish fragments into it. That knife was F*King poisonous. Anyway, it was good. He could completely suppress the Cloud Mist restaurant, and it wouldn't be long before he could destroy it. Yang Meiji had always thought that after becoming Bufang's apprentice, she would be able to learn how to cook. However, she had never thought that the first thing she had to learn was to cut vegetables. She had only cut 1/3 of the radishes, and she was completely dumbfounded. However, he didn't expect that this little chef's background wasn't simple. He couldn't do anything to Bufang. Beside her, there was a tall pile of radishes. These radishes were neatly cut and looked pretty good. Don't look at it anymore. In the future, Xiao Bai will handle the dishes for you when you practice your knife skills, said Bufang. Since the other party dared to open a restaurant in the Heavenly Mist City and even opened it opposite the Cloud Mist restaurant, he naturally had the confidence to do so. The curtain of night slowly approached and the sky darkened. The setting sun gradually covered its afterglow, leaving only a little light shining. Judging from the aroma wafting in the air, the chef's culinary skills were definitely not weak. This aroma was very rich, and it contained spirit energy, causing Bufang to involuntarily narrow his eyes. Simply terrifying. These stupid people. Paper-wrapped fish? This is a rather famous dish, but I wonder if the cooking method provided by the system will be any different, Bufang thought to himself. He curled up on the chair and curled up the corner of his mouth. With a slash of the knife, the radish was cut into 2 halves. With another slash, the radish was cut into 2 halves. A moment later, Bufang walked into the kitchen. Yang Meiji's eyes were bloodshot as she stared at Bufang. He was the first chef to die while cutting vegetables. Yang Meiji really wanted to use these words to express her innermost feelings, but when she thought of Nangong Wuk happily eating the dishes she cooked, her heart suddenly became happy. Indeed, this temporary task wasn't that easy. Zhou Tong was bewildered. A moment later, his face turned red. Why did he have an impulse to beat that kid up when he looked at his emotionless face? Outside the kitchen, faint footsteps arose. However, Bufang was really interested in this temporary task. At least, he was interested in the reward of this task. That was why the system had arranged such a difficult temporary task. So soon, young Master Nangong would be able to taste her cooking? Awesome, your head, Yang Meiji exhaled deeply. She suddenly felt energized again. At the Gluttonous Immortals restaurant, yeah, are you scared? The corners of Zhou Tong's mouth rose as he sneered. It's useless even if you're scared. This great chef's goal is to destroy you. Yang Meiji was an alchemist, so of course, she was very familiar with herbs. Bufang raised his finger, pointing at the radish in the distance. He nodded, signaling Yang Meiji to continue. Then you're awesome, said Bufang, his face emotionless. However, it wasn't Zhou Tong's final goal. His final goal was to destroy this restaurant and regain the Valley of Gluttony's prestige. This time, Zhou Tong's original plan was to force his way in and directly capture the chef who had defeated Bufang. Then, he would ruthlessly beat him up. Kid, now you know how powerful my Valley of Gluttony is. This great chef just opened a small shop, and it could crush your restaurant that you've worked so hard to manage. Don't you feel sad? Don't you feel hopeless? Zhou Tong clasped his hands, a smug expression appearing on his face. However, after thinking about it carefully, the anger in Zhou Tong's heart slowly subsided. He sneered at Bufang, then turned and left without saying a word. Bufang was a little annoyed. Why were these people from the Valley of Gluttony so ruthless? He had just killed Wen Rinchou, and now there was Zhou Tong. Moreover, this Zhou Tong knew how to open a restaurant opposite his. His goal was to destroy the Cloud Mist restaurant. You opened the restaurant opposite? Asked Bufang. Yang Meiji glanced at Bufang. Only a ghost would believe you. Don't be afraid. The task later will be very easy, said Bufang seriously. Kill him directly. Destroy the other side. The other side was also a restaurant. If he wanted to destroy the other side, Bufang really had to think carefully. Yang Meiji's eyes were wide open, and her eyes were bloodshot. The blood vessels were so thick that it looked very scary. He clasped his hands leisurely, his face expressionless. Moreover, he was using such a heavy kitchen knife that was constantly absorbing spirit energy to chop vegetables. Zhou Tong had succeeded. The popularity of his Gluttonous Immortals restaurant had far exceeded his expectations. She did not think about the reward. The task was not completed yet, so the reward was just a fleeting cloud. She gasped for air, and her entire arm trembled. In the restaurant, if you continue like this, I choose to give up. If I make soup, will young Master Nangong be able to drink it tomorrow? He was not stupid. Before he understood Bufang's background, he would not foolishly challenge Bufang to a chef's challenge. However, Bufang could clearly sense that the other side's goal of opening a restaurant was to provoke him, or rather, provoke the Cloud Mist restaurant. If you destroy me, I'll destroy you. Bufang looked at Yang Meiji, his face incomparably solemn. As for this Cloud Mist restaurant, just wait for it to close. Are you done practicing your knife skill? All right. The next task is easy. Stand up. I want you to make soup. It'll be useful tomorrow. After Xiao Bai had collected the radishes, Yang Meiji collapsed, sitting on the ground. This. How do I make soup with these herbs? Will young Master Wuk drink it? In the kitchen, Yang Meiji was so tired that she was about to collapse. Beside her was a pile of radish pieces. Xiao Bai was standing there, his stomach bulging as he collected all the radishes. There was actually another temporary mission. The previous temporary mission hadn't been completed yet. For the handsome young Master Nangong, what was this little hardship? To a large extent, The other side's goal was to destroy her restaurant. Young Meiji, you have to work hard. She felt that if she continued, she would die. When the gluttonous immortal's restaurant's reputation spread, the number of customers would completely crush the Cloud Mist restaurant. Did Yang Meiji really think that she had cooking talent? Owner Bu. Was he deceiving her? The system's serious voice reverberated in Bu Fang's head, causing Bu Fang to be slightly dazed. Yang Meiji felt her arm stiffen, as though it was filled with lead. Every move she made was incomparably heavy. Don't think that you're invincible just because you defeated a chef from the Valley of Gluttony. This time, this great chef wants your restaurant to close down. When Rincho, that idiot, can't compare to me, I will let you know what despair is. Zhou Tong sneered coldly. After Zhou Tong sent off the last customer, he let out a long sigh. Zhou Tong asked the waiter in the restaurant to clean up the utensils. Then, he took off his chef robe, clasping his hands as he leisurely walked toward the Cloud Mist restaurant. Today was the Gluttonous Immortals restaurant's first opening, but it had attracted half of the Cloud Mist restaurant's customers. She rolled up her sleeves, revealing the bulging muscles on her arms. Holding a kitchen knife, her mouth was trembling. Bu Fang's voice broke Yang Meiji's daze, causing her to turn her gaze toward him. Bu Fang stood up from where he was curled up. He calmly looked at Zhou Tong, who was acting cool. The moment he smelled the aroma of the dish, Bu Fang's heart had already made a judgment. He walked in front of Xiao Bai, patting Xiao Bai's plump belly. In the next instant, Xiao Bai's purple eyes flashed. Soup! Yang Meiji, who was sitting on the floor, instantly got up. Her eyes instantly lit up. In the next instant, with a loud bang, the bronze door of the restaurant closed. After closing the door, Bu Fang went to the kitchen. He raised his head, squinted, and wore an unfathomable smile on his face. As expected, the other party also wants to destroy the Cloud Mist restaurant. If so, I won't be polite. When she saw the medicinal ingredients that Bu Fang took out, the expectant smile on her face instantly froze. He opened his mouth, spitting out a ball of golden flame. The flame was scorching, causing the temperature in the kitchen to instantly rise. Although the Cloud Mist restaurant was not the first branch of Bu Fang's restaurant, since someone came to provoke Bu Fang, he could not tolerate it. Practice well. If you don't accumulate steps, you can't reach 1,000 miles. If you want to become a good chef, you need to practice bit by bit. Bu Fang clasped his hands, saying calmly, "After you finish practicing your knife skills, I have a new task for you." Indeed, it was the people from the Valley of Gluttony who were stirring up trouble. The corners of Bu Fang's mouth slightly rose. After entering the kitchen, Bu Fang first looked at the small mountain of radishes, then at Yang Meiji, who was gasping for breath, as though she was about to die. Yang Meiji was instantly speechless. She once again picked up the incomparably heavy kitchen knife, continuing to cut the radishes. "Don't stop. Continue to cut. Cut all the ingredients properly," said Bu Fang. Yang Meiji was dumbstruck as she looked at the iron puppet. She watched as the puppet's stomach closed up, and its purple eyes twinkled. Holding its fat belly, it turned around and left with a dull face. Chapter 631. Yang Meiji widened her eyes as she looked at the pile of herbs that Bu Fang had carefully selected. As an alchemist, she naturally had some knowledge about the different types of herbs. Thus, she was clear about the properties of those herbs. At this moment, her face darkened as she looked at those herbs. Bu Fang looked at her suspiciously. "Who said that the soup made from these herbs is for Nangong wok?" Yang Meiji was bewildered. Then, she smiled awkwardly. "Look after the herbs in the wok. Boil them for 2 hours. After the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, stir them clockwise twice. Do you understand?" Bu Fang said. Yang Meiji nodded. What Bu Fang said was really easy. No wonder he said that it wasn't tiring. Compared to using the heavy kitchen knife that absorbed true energy to cut carrots, this task was really easy. After Yang Meiji took over Bufang's work, Bufang turned around and squatted down again. He seemed to be fiddling with something in the cupboard. After a long time, Bufang took out an earthen jar. Yang Meiji stirred the medicinal soup while looking at Bufang suspiciously. She found that the earthen jar was a little familiar, as though she had seen it somewhere before. When Bufang placed the earthen jar on the stove, a strange smell spread out from the earthen jar. Yang Meiji's nose twitched. A moment later, she opened her eyes, and her pupils seemed to have light shining. This is stinky tofu? Yang Meiji cried out in surprise. Bufang's stinky tofu. It was famous in the entire Heavenly Mist City. It should be known that in the Magical Hand Conference, the stinky tofu shone brilliantly and caused many alchemists' furnaces to explode. That unbelievably stinky smell. It left a deep impression in everyone's memory. More importantly, although this stinky tofu smelled really stinky, it tasted really good. Could it be that owner Bu wanted to make stinky tofu this time? However, what was the relationship between this stinky tofu and this medicinal soup? Yang Meiji was puzzled. Although she didn't understand, her heart was filled with curiosity. She didn't ask too many questions and just continuously stirred the medicinal soup. As the heaven and earth obsidian flame boiled, the medicinal soup in the Black Turtle constellation walk began to slowly emit spirit energy. Although it wasn't strong, it shook Yang Meiji's spirit. Bufang glanced at Yang Meiji. He rolled up his sleeves, raised his palm, and lightly patted the seal. Bang! Immediately, the lid was opened, and a dense stench drifted out from the jar. It was really smelly. Yang Meiji, who was closest to them, had a dark expression on her face. Why did owner Bu bring the stinky tofu here? Can't you just let me boil the soup properly? Suddenly, Yang Meiji's eyes widened. She had a bad premonition. She looked at owner Bu in shock. He discovered that Bufang had actually poured the stinky tofu from the clay jar into the Black Turtle constellation Wa. Dong, dong, dong. Pieces of stinky tofu were placed into the pot and floated in the medicinal soup. The stench spread in just a blink of an eye. Yang Meiji's movement froze. Her face didn't have any expression. Owner Bu, you're a liar. Didn't you say that this task was easy? Are you sure it's easy? Smelling that stench, Yang Meiji felt as if the whole world had abandoned her. The most important thing was, when the stinky tofu was mixed with the medicinal soup, the stench became even thicker. It was so stinky that it could shake the heavens and the earth. Owner Bu made such stinky tofu. What did he want to do? To take revenge on society? Bufang scooped out the last piece of stinky tofu from the clay jar. Satisfied, he placed the jar down. Smelling the stench, the corners of his mouth rose. Come on. You must strictly follow the standard I told you to boil the soup. After you're done, just leave it here, said Bufang. After saying that, he nodded at Yang Meiji solemnly. Then, he turned around, clasped his hands behind his back, left the kitchen, and walked toward his room while Yang Meiji had a look of despair on her face. In the kitchen, the stench filled the air. This time, the stench could make people break down. Valley of Gluttony, an old man wearing a long robe, was slowly walking along the path that bordered the lake. The wind that blew over from the surface of the lake caused his white hair to flutter. Behind the old man, several young people wearing chef robes were slowly following him. However, those young people seemed to be afraid of the old man's prestige. They didn't dare to approach him. They just followed him from a distance. If the old man had any orders, they would appear immediately. All of a sudden, the old man halted his steps. He turned around, looking at the vast, dark blue lake. Above the lake, there were birds and spirit beasts flying high in the sky, crying out. It was a clear blue expanse. The young people in the distance were bewildered. They halted their steps and didn't dare to breathe loudly. They didn't know what the old man was going to do. They saw the old man raise his palm. A beam of light flashed in his palm. A moment later, A teleportation array expanded in front of him. Teleportation array? The young people were a little confused. In the next moment, an incomparably miserable figure appeared in the teleportation array. That figure was rather familiar, causing the few youngsters to involuntarily widen their eyes. Senior brother Wenrincho? Many people cried out in surprise. That was because they recognized who that person was. How could their senior be in such a sorry state? Although Senior Wenrincho wasn't the strongest chef in their line, he was still ranked on the tablet of gluttony. Even though he was ranked at the bottom, he was still much stronger than third-grade chefs like them. Wenrincho's face was dejected. His figure was extremely strong, but now he looked extremely dispirited. His beard was unshaven, and his eyes were lifeless. He lost. He lost in a chef's challenge. The wind on the lake blew over, bringing with it a slight chill. It made Wenrincho more awake. He opened his eyes and saw the white-haired old man in front of him. His body trembled, and with a thud, he knelt on the ground. "Teacher, I've lost." Wenrincho's eyes became clearer. He knelt on the ground and his voice was trembling. The old man's imposing manner made him feel fear. "You don't have to call me teacher. Ever since you lost to the chef outside the valley, you are no longer my disciple. You reap the bitter fruit that you've plucked," the old man said faintly. Wenrincho was stunned. His eyes revealed a hint of struggle, and his heart was incomparably painful. The old man raised his hand and his long sleeves fell down, revealing a crystal-clear finger. That finger touched Wenrincho's head. In the next moment, Wenrincho felt his body tremble. "From today onwards, you are no longer my disciple. However, I have already suppressed the tablet of gluttony's oath. You can continue cooking. However, if you want to completely break the oath, you will have to challenge the road of gluttony. If you can walk out of the road of gluttony alive, you only need to defeat the chef who made you lose in the chef's challenge to break the tablet of gluttony's oath," the old man said. Wenrincho knelt on the ground. He didn't think that the old man would give him this chance. Challenge the road of gluttony? Although Wenrincho heard that it was an extremely terrifying road in the Valley of Gluttony, he had no other choice. He had to challenge it. When he walked out of the road of gluttony, he would definitely crush Bufang. "All right, you can scram now." After the old man finished speaking, he didn't care about Wenrincho anymore. He clasped his hands behind his back, facing the huge lake. In the lake, there were fishes jumping out, splashing water everywhere. Wenrincho staggered up from the ground and gave a deep bow to the old man. Then, he turned around and left. His figure quickly disappeared from sight. The few young people looked at each other. Challenge the road of gluttony. Could Senior Wenrincho do it? That was a true road of death. Many Valley of Gluttony's geniuses had died on that road. That was a true road of no return. They couldn't understand the old man's choice. Only the old man faced the huge lake, his heart calm. Central part of the Hidden Dragon continent. Within the territory of the Hidden Dragon Royal Court. A rumbling sound came from a mountain that was emitting a five-colored radiance. After a while, several figures stepped out from the five-colored mountain. They stood in the air, and a terrifying aura filled the surroundings. Jiaoya is dead. The ancient Shura city's army was almost completely annihilated. Our plan this time is considered a complete failure, a young man wearing a golden crown and a purple robe said with a solemn expression. How many years has it been since our heavenly spring holy lands suffered such a loss? A disciple actually died outside the imperial court, and even the god-slaying bow was broken. The other figure was a beautiful woman with fair skin and a voluptuous figure. Every movement she made was filled with charm. Jiao Ye went to hunt for the netherworld creatures, but he met with an accident. This is a big matter, and we can't ignore it. Also, our heavenly spring holy land has completed half of the annexation of the Pill Palace. The remaining heavenly mist city is not a big deal. Let those arrogant alchemists of the Pill Palace struggle at death's door, the purple-robed young man continued. The beautiful woman stroked her black hair, and a murderous aura flashed between her brows. No matter what, they killed the people of our heavenly spring holy land. This debt must be avenged. There's no hurry. The Valley of Gluttony's decennial Glutton Gods Banquet is about to begin. Let the Saint's son go. Every Glutton Gods Banquet is a secret competition between the younger generation of our royal court. I heard that the Heavenly Secret Holy Land and the Heaven's Pivot Holy Land both accepted a good seedling. Some of the old fellows from the Heavenly Secret Holy Land and the Heaven's Pivot Holy Land have been very arrogant lately. I'm afraid those old fellows will send that seedling to the Glutton Gods Banquet this time. We can't be weak, the purple-robed young man said. The beautiful woman pondered for a while, then said, "Then let the Saint's son go. He should go for a walk. Otherwise, the other great sage land's saints' sons will forget about our heavenly spring holy land's saint's son." "Ha ha! That's right, let him go." The purple-robed young man laughed. "Also, let the shadow demon bring the god-slaying spear to heavenly Mist City. The dignity of the Holy Land cannot be challenged. That netherworld creature dared to kill the people of our heavenly spring, so he must be punished. With the shadow demon's cultivation, it should be enough." Early morning. Sunlight shone through the window. Opposite the Cloud Mist restaurant, Zhou Tong's Gluttonous Immortals restaurant had officially opened for business. The restaurant's entrance was already crowded with people. He had also started to prepare his own wok and started to cook. The thick aroma of the dishes wafted around. Bufang walked out of his room and went to the kitchen. On the kitchen stove, the black turtle constellation wok was quietly placed. The flame under the wok had long been extinguished, and a strange aroma wafted around the entire kitchen. Bufang stirred the ingredients in the wok. The stinky tofu floated in the wok. As he stirred, a thick stench instantly surged out. This was the smell of the herbs mixed with the smell of the stinky tofu, making it even more stinky. Gently patting the black turtle constellation wok, Bufang single-handedly picked up the wok and walked out of the restaurant. Yang Meiji had just woken up. Rubbing her sleepy eyes, she saw this shocking scene. "Owner Bu? What are you doing?" Yang Meiji didn't understand. In the small restaurant, Yu and Lord Go had already finished their preparations. One man and one dog sat on a chair, waiting for the food. However, the one who waited was Bufang, who came out with a wok. Smelling the stench emitted from the wok, the man and the dog's brows arched. This Bufang wanted to stir up trouble again. Chapter 632. Creak. The bronze gate was pushed open. Bufang held the black turtle constellation wok with one hand, walking away. He had actually walked out of the restaurant's area. Many diners looked at Bufang in a daze, as though they didn't know what owner Bu was going to do this time. They saw Bufang walk not far from the Gluttonous Immortals restaurant. There, Zhou Tong was using a wok to fry fragrant food. He stared at Bufang, who was walking out with a wok, in shock. What was this little chef doing? All of a sudden, Zhou Tong's eyes narrowed. He saw Bufang place the black turtle constellation wok on the ground. Bufang gently exhaled. A moment later, Bufang opened his mouth, spitting out a ball of golden flame. That flame directly entered the black turtle constellation wok, burning fiercely. A heaven and earth obsidian flame. Zhou Tong looked at the flame that Bufang spat out. His eyes shrank. He dared to use a heaven and earth obsidian flame to cook. This little chef did have some trick. However, this kid placed the black wok in front of the Gluttonous Immortals restaurant. Was he trying to provoke the Gluttonous Immortals restaurant? He hadn't provoked him yet, and this little chef dared to make the first move. He really wouldn't shed a tear until he saw the coffin. Since that was the case, he would thoroughly crush this little chef. He would let him know how strong the chefs of the Valley of Gluttony were. He wasn't that dumb when Rincho, Opening his palm, Zhou Tong's true energy instantly boiled. The oil in the wok was boiling, constantly splashing. One after another, fragrant dishes shot out from the wok of oil. They flew through the void, spun, and finally landed on the porcelain plate. Among the thick aroma, there was the fragrance of wheat, meat, and herbs. The aroma was unique, and when mixed together, it had a unique taste. It was really fragrant. Bufang took a deep breath, the corners of his mouth rising. The surrounding diners were bewildered. Facing the gluttonous immortal's restaurant's provocation, owner Bu couldn't stand it anymore? Was he going to make a move? Try one. Zhou Tong clasped one hand behind his back. With a flick of his finger, a deep-fried golden meatball hovering in the air flew towards Bufang. Bufang raised his eyebrows and caught the meatball. The warm meatball exuded a fragrant aroma, and the dense gas drifted over it, making the meatball quite beautiful. Bufang dragged the meatball, stuffed it into his mouth, and took a bite. Instantly, the moment he bit into it, golden oil actually splashed out from the meatball. The oil was boiling hot, and the heat and fragrance spread out. The taste of the meatball was not bad, which made Bufang raise his eyebrows slightly. He looked at Zhou Tong in astonishment. This fellow's craftsmanship was indeed not bad. Compared to that when Rinchou, he was not the slightest bit inferior. It was no wonder that he had the confidence to open a shop opposite the Cloud Mist restaurant and wanted to destroy it. But what a pity! Bufang stuffed all the meatballs into his mouth. As he chewed, he waved his hand at Yang Meiji, who was watching the scene from afar. Yang Meiji was dumbfounded. Why did he call her again? Come here. I have an easy task for you, Bufang said calmly. When Yang Meiji heard his tone, she was shocked, and all the pores on her body tightened. Another easy task? Owner Bu, this swindler. Did he think that she would believe him? However, Yang Meiji still went over in the end. That was because she saw Nangong Wuk slowly walking over with a few people. Stir it like yesterday. However, if anyone wants to buy the stinky tofu, I'll sell it to you for 5 crystals. It's a huge discount. If you don't want to eat it, don't eat it, Bufang said. After saying that, he looked at Zhou Tong with a meaningful gaze, then turned around and walked towards the Cloud Mist restaurant. Zhou Tong's face was blank. What did this little chef mean? Was he looking down on him? Placing a wok in front of his restaurant and running away? What was he trying to do? Especially that meaningful gaze before he left. What did that gaze mean? Why did it make people so nervous? Yang Meiji took a deep breath and her chest puffed up. Her eyes looked at the black wok, and a resolute look appeared in her eyes. For young Master Wuk, I'll risk it all. Swish. Slowly stirring the stinky tofu that was soaked in the medicinal broth, the dark brown broth began to boil. A stench that was so thick that it could cause people to collapse spread out. Originally, many people were curious, wanting to see what was in the black wok that Owner Bu had carefully prepared. In the end, when the stench was forced out, everyone's face darkened. It was that familiar stench again. Many people had a dumbfounded look on their faces, and they retreated because of the stench. Of course, Zhou Tong also smelled this stench. That stench followed him like a shadow, drifting into his nose. He was instantly dumbfounded. Stench. Stench. Why was it AF * King stench? Did that little chef take the wrong thing? What kind of joke was this stinky dish that couldn't be smelled? Was this a dish? Was this a dish that could be eaten? Wah! This stench. It's really unforgiving. It's still that familiar smell, and it's still that familiar recipe. This is Owner Bu's. No. You're wrong. This time, the recipe is even more stinky. The faces of the diners, who were suffocated by the stench, were filled with black lines. However, everyone was in an uproar. Stinky tofu, Owner Bu's signature dish. A dish that stinks to the heavens. The one that was unrivaled in the Magical Hand Conference. A strange dish. Almost everyone present had seen Owner Bu's dishes before. Although the stench was unbearable, it was rare that no one retreated. Instead, they revealed expressions of eagerness. Of course, it was Zhou Tong's first time seeing stinky tofu. The stench of the improved stinky tofu was beyond Zhou Tong's understanding. This kind of thing, could it even be called a dish? Wasn't it just cooking sh*t? As a chef from the Valley of Gluttony, Zhou Tong really couldn't bear this stench. From his point of view, a dish must be fragrant. Fragrance was the most direct expression of a dish. A dish with a fragrant aroma could make people feel extremely happy. That was a true dish. The thing in front of him, which had a heaven-piercing stench, had nothing to do with a dish. From afar, Nangong Wuk and the others were flying over. This time, Nangong Wuk had a lot of people following him. Nangong Wan wore a veil, looking incomparably gentle. The familiar smell of the stinky tofu made her furrow her brows. However, very quickly, her brows relaxed. Sorceress and Xing had an intoxicated look on her face as she sniffed the stench. Her towering chest heaved up and down as she ran toward the black turtle constellation walk with her straight and voluptuous legs. Stinky tofu. It's actually stinky tofu. Sorceress and Xing was incomparably excited. This was Owner Bu's famous dish. It was a dish that smelled so bad that it made many alchemists famous. Nangong Wuk excitedly walked in front of the black turtle constellation walk. He said to Yang Meiji, who was staring at him in a daze, "Old Yang, are you helping Owner Bu sell stinky tofu? This stinky tofu is really stinky. How much is it? Give this young master a piece." When Zhou Tong heard Nangong Wuk's words, his eyes almost popped out. Was this guy an idiot? He actually wanted to spend crystals to buy such a smelly dish? Did he have nothing better to do than to buy stinky food? Yang Meiji looked at Nangong Wuk. Her face was flushed with excitement, and it was rosy. Good, good. 1 piece of stinky tofu for 5 crystals. Yang Meiji said excitedly. Nangong Wuk gently looked at Yang Meiji and smiled. His handsome face dazzled Yang Meiji, and she felt suffocated. She scooped up a piece of stinky tofu and gave it to Nangong Wuk. Nangong Wuk grabbed it and stuffed it into his mouth. After taking a bite, Nangong Wuk's eyes instantly widened. This taste, this smell. All the pores on his body seemed to open up at this moment. It felt even better than before. When Zhou Tong saw Nangong Wuk holding a piece of pitch-black tofu and stuffing it into his mouth, he sucked in a breath of cold air. When he sucked in a breath of cold air, the stench immediately surged into his nose, and his face darkened. It was King Stinky. He never would have thought that the little chef would actually do such a thing. Previously, when the tofu was not stirred, the stench was not obvious. Now that it was heated and stirred, the stench was simply overwhelming. The entire area seemed to have turned into a sea of stench. Zhou Tong felt that the fragrance of the delicacy he was cooking was affected, and it became incomparably smelly. It made people lose their appetite. Sorceress and Xing also bought a piece of stinky tofu. Under Zhou Tong's sharp gaze, she ate it happily. As she ate, she squinted her eyes in enjoyment. In Zhou Tong's eyes, this group of people was simply perverted. Suddenly, Zhou Tong froze. He realized that Nangong Wuk was holding a piece of stinky tofu in his hand and was walking toward his restaurant. Instantly, Zhou Tong's face turned green. "No. Don't come over." Zhou Tong's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. Nangong Wuk's steps suddenly froze. His entire body was holding the stinky tofu, and he was stunned on the spot. "Why won't you let me go over? Aren't you opening a restaurant? Why won't you let me go over?" Nangong Wuk was a little angry. Was he looking down on this young master? Were you jealous of this young master's beauty? Nangong Wuk spat out a stinky breath as he spoke. As he spoke, he stuffed the stinky tofu into his mouth. That stinky breath sprayed out, spraying directly on Zhou Tong's face. Zhou Tong's face became even greener, greener and greener. He took a few steps back, his face filled with fear. It was so stinky. Nangong Wuk stuffed the stinky tofu into his mouth. The rich taste bloomed in his mouth, and it was so delicious that Nangong Wuk almost moaned. That blurred gaze made Zhou Tong feel as though he was looking at a pervert. Nangong Wuk squinted his eyes, opened his mouth, and spat out the stinky breath. His face was filled with intoxication. Those who had never personally tasted stinky tofu would find it hard to understand how delicious it was. As a foodie, one had to see the essence through the appearance. Sorceress and Sheng was also eating stinky tofu. She curiously moved toward Zhou Tong's restaurant, raised her head, and chewed on the stinky tofu while looking at Zhou Tong with a puzzled expression. "Boss, how much is this meatball? Give me one." Zhou Tong's face was filled with fear. This group of people were crazy. In the distance, the diners gathered in front of the Black Turtle Constellation Walk, fighting to be the first to buy the stinky tofu. It was not easy to eat Owner Bu's stinky tofu. After all, Owner Bu would not easily cook stinky tofu. Thus, in front of Zhou Tong's restaurant, a group of diners were holding a piece of stinky tofu and chewing on it. That stinky breath seemed to transform into a black gas that enveloped Zhou Tong's restaurant. The smell caused Zhou Tong's chest to heave up and down, and he almost vomited blood. Especially after this group of people finished eating the stinky tofu, they ran in front of him with faces filled with excitement, asking him how much he was selling his fried meatball. When they opened and closed their mouths, the stinky breath would spurt out. This group of people was definitely doing it on purpose. So many stinky breaths filled the air. It was so stinky that he wanted to die. What kind of restaurant was this? The people here were all crazy. Zhou Tong's heart almost collapsed. He never would have thought that Bu Fang would actually make such a move, completely unconventional. What happened to the promised fair competition, where they would destroy each other? Chapter 633. In Zhou Tong's memory, he had never smelled such a stinky thing before. Moreover, this stench was actually emitted from the dishes. Looking at the group of people eating in high spirits, everyone's faces were filled with joy. Zhou Tong was really dumbfounded. Could it be that the stinky dish was really delicious? From the bottom of his heart, Zhou Tong did not believe it. As a chef of the Valley of Gluttony, he had eaten all kinds of dishes. However, he had never heard of a dish that smelled so bad being delicious. That was a dish that had completely transcended his worldview. From the kitchen, Bu Fang slowly walked out. He wiped off the water stains on his hands and returned to the kitchen to cook sweet and sour ribs and dragon blood rice for Lord Go and Yu. After that, he walked out once more. The stinky tofu's popularity did not exceed his expectations. In Heavenly Mist City, his stinky tofu was a signature dish that everyone knew about. More importantly, even in the Cloud Mist restaurant, Bu Fang rarely cooked the stinky tofu. Hence, the diners in Heavenly Mist City rarely had the chance to eat it. This time, being able to eat the stinky tofu was really a surprise. The diners in Heavenly Mist City were not fools. From the moment Zhou Tong's restaurant opened opposite Owner Bu's, they knew that he was coming aggressively. However, they did not care. They only knew that they would go to whoever's dishes were delicious. Hence, they did not care about how many restaurants there were in Heavenly Mist City. They could imagine that in the future, restaurants would pop up like bamboo shoots after a spring rain in Heavenly Mist City. However, they did not care about that. The only thing they cared about was whether or not they would be able to eat delicious food. For example, Owner Bu's stinky tofu. This time, being able to eat the stinky tofu made them really happy. It was extremely stinky, but they were also extremely happy. Speaking of which, they really had to thank Zhou Tong. If not for him, Owner Bu would not have taken out such a delicious dish that was unrivaled in the Magical Hand Conference. In order to thank Zhou Tong, Many diners specially ran to his restaurant to inquire about the price of the dish. They wanted to buy a portion of Zhou Tong's dish. However, they did not expect that when Zhou Tong looked at this group of people, it was as if he was looking at a bunch of lunatics. A large amount of stench rushed over, causing Zhou Tong's face to turn green. Bufang walked to Yang Meiji with his hands behind his back. There wasn't much stinky tofu left in the wok. The soup was boiling and steam was rising. Yang Meiji's face was flushed, and her face was full of excitement. Seeing that the stinky tofu was sold in her hands, that sense of accomplishment almost made her fall. This was something that could not be experienced when refining pills. Yang Meiji suddenly felt that learning cooking from Bufang was not a bad idea. Bufang picked up a piece of stinky tofu from the black turtle constellation wok. Black gravy dripped down from the stinky tofu, and under the sunlight, the stinky tofu was sparkling and translucent. If it wasn't for the overwhelming stench, this stinky tofu would have been very appetizing. Bufang glanced at Zhou Tong, whose face had turned green. He slowly swung his arm. Immediately, that piece of stinky tofu sped towards Zhou Tong. "Don't say that I'm bullying you. You gave me a taste of the meatball, so I'll also give you a taste of the stinky tofu," Bufang lightly said. Zhou Tong's eyes narrowed. Raising his hand, he caught the stinky tofu. A wave of stench assaulted his nostrils. Enduring the unpleasant stench, Zhou Tong narrowed his eyes and looked at the stinky tofu. There seemed to be a faint radiance circulating on it, and a dense spiritual energy spread out from time to time. Zhou Tong's heart trembled. It was indeed not ordinary. But could it really be eaten? So stinky? It made one not even have the desire to eat it. However, looking at the group of people around him eating it happily, Zhou Tong's heart was a little shaken and hesitant. Could it really be delicious? That's right. Since Bufang was a chef who could defeat Wen Rinchou, it was impossible for him to take out a dish that only had a stench. That would be purely disgusting. If this stinky tofu was really delicious, then Bufang would be left with this round. Opening his mouth, Zhou Tong gently took a bite of the stinky tofu. When his teeth bit down, a slight abrasive feeling spread out on his teeth. That feeling was rather peculiar. The slightly blackened skin of the tofu was bitten through, and the stench surged into his mouth. But the strange thing was, this stench completely did not make people feel that it was extremely disgusting. Instead, there was a wave of fragrance. Could it be that this was the so-called extremely stinky would be fragrant? Munch munch, the surrounding people ate with satisfaction. Zhou Tong could not help but take a few more bites. When the stinky tofu entered his stomach, the taste was really delicious. After eating the stinky tofu, Zhou Tong seemed to have developed an immunity to the surrounding stench. He was not affected in the slightest. After eating the entire piece of stinky tofu, Zhou Tong became silent. In the next instant, under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, Zhou Tong kept the wok of oil. He gave Bufang a deep look and did not say anything. He ordered the people to keep the things, closed the shop's doors, and stopped doing business. He knew that with the stinky tofu, he could not compare to Bufang in business today. Moreover, after eating the stinky tofu, Zhou Tong did not have the mood to do business anymore. The stinky tofu was sold out, and Zhou Tong also closed the shop. Bufang only slightly twitched the corners of his mouth, as though he was not surprised at all. He single-handedly picked up the black turtle constellation wok, then walked into the restaurant. Not long after, he returned to the kitchen. Inside the restaurant, Yu and Blackie had just finished their dishes. Yu was so angry. Today's dragon blood rice was deducted a lot by Bufang again. Bufang had changed. He was not like this in the past. Yu felt so wronged in her heart. "Old Yang, come in. Continue to practice your knife skills," Bufang said to Yang Meiji. Hearing that she had to practice her knife skills, Yang Meiji's face instantly drooped. Practicing her knife skills was so tiring. Outside the restaurant, the line of people increased again. The business was in full swing. However, Bufang's brows furrowed because the system did not judge that he had completed the abrupt task. Obviously, Zhou Tong had not given up. The next day, when Bufang opened the bronze door, there were already many diners outside. They all looked in surprise at Zhou Tong, who was standing in front of the cloud mist restaurant with a wok. Zhou Tong saw Bufang and his mouth cracked into a smile. This time, it's my turn. Light the fire, heat the wok. Rumble, rumble. A kitchen knife engulfed in flames spun, and ingredients flew everywhere. Zhou Tong stood under the ingredients, looking at Bufang. Bufang was stunned and his heart shivered. As expected, Zhou Tong had not given up. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The ingredients fell into the wok. Zhou Tong held a bronze wok spatula, quickly stir-frying them. A thick fragrance continuously spread out. Moreover, the stir-frying sound seemed to be able to shatter the sky, causing everyone to be incomparably shocked. That stir-frying sound was extremely loud. It was like layers of waves of fire slapping over. Bufang looked at Zhou Tong's movements in surprise. This technique was extremely dazzling, and it seemed that the control of the ingredients and spirit energy was extremely mysterious. The thick fragrance spread out, causing everyone's face to reveal an intoxicated expression. Compared to the stench of Bufang's stinky tofu yesterday, Zhou Tong chose to use the incomparably fragrant smell to defeat Bufang today. The fragrance spread out, as though it had transformed into a real tiger, roaring at everyone, causing their hearts to tremble. This is the cooking technique of the Valley of Gluttony. The extreme control of fragrance, Zhou Tong said. Bufang narrowed his eyes, seriously watching Zhou Tong's cooking. Suddenly, Bufang seemed to have discovered something strange, and his brows instantly twitched in surprise. He realized that Zhou Tong's mental energy fluctuation was not very strong. Although it was there, it was only to support the cooking technique. Bufang's cooking techniques might not be as good as Zhou Tong's, but Bufang used his mental energy to cook. His control over the flow of spirit energy in the dishes, as well as the energy fluctuations, was much stronger than Zhou Tong's. This might be the difference between mental energy cooking and cooking technique cooking. Since the other party wanted to compete in fragrance, then let's compete. Bufang gently exhaled, and green smoke curled up from his hand. Instantly, the black turtle constellation wok expanded with the wind, smashing in front of the door with a bang. Bufang opened his mouth and spat out a ball of golden flame. That flame scuttled into Bufang's hand, and with a casual toss of Bufang, it fell into the black turtle constellation wok. An iron net densely covered the mouth of the wok. Bufang took out various ingredients from the system-dimensional bag. These ingredients flew out, and the dragon bone kitchen knife in Bufang's hand surged out. Since the other party wanted to fight, then Bufang would properly fight with him. True energy entered the dragon bone kitchen knife, and the dragon bone kitchen knife instantly became resplendent. Roar! A dragon's roar resounded through the sky. Zhou Tong only saw a golden light flash in front of his eyes, and in the next instant, he saw ingredients falling from the sky. Bufang's fingers held a handful of iron needles, and at the instant the ingredients fell, Bufang threw the iron needles out. Swoosh! Swoosh! In a daze, the ingredients that were cut into pieces were actually pierced by the iron needles, falling on the iron net of the black turtle constellation wok, and even bouncing for a while. Boom! Flames soared into the sky. Bufang's mental energy surged out, and a terrifying mental energy spread out, causing everyone present to feel a wave of pressure. Bufang's cultivation might not be comparable to the others, but his mental energy was extremely strong. There seemed to be a ball of energy circulating in Zhou Tong's chest. Looking at the indifferent Bufang who chose to fight with him, he resisted the urge to let out a long roar. This wasn't a chef's challenge, but it was similar to a chef's challenge, It could be considered a silent chef's challenge between the two of them, and the wager of the chef's challenge was: the loser would represent the restaurant's collapse. This could be considered a fair and square clash of cooking skills between the two of them. Zhou Tong did not think that Bufang would actually choose to fight him head-on. In terms of stench, his dishes might not be comparable to Bufang's stinky tofu. However, in terms of fragrance, Zhou Tong, who came from the Valley of Gluttony, would be afraid of Bufang? He, Zhou Tong, as a first-grade chef, had the confidence of a first-grade chef. At this moment, let the fragrance fill the entire hall. Bufang indifferently looked at Zhou Tong, his face expressionless. The 5 fingers of one hand were holding ingredients on the iron net, and these ingredients were placed on top of the iron net. The heaven and earth obsidian flames spread out, and the flames soared into the sky. Bufang's mental energy spread out, covering the ingredients, and he carefully felt every strand of fragrance flowing. Splash! The oil splashed down, sprinkling on the ingredient. In an instant, the flames were like a roaring fire dragon, surging up violently, and the flames filled the sky. The surrounding diners were all dumbfounded. Even Nangong Wuk and the others who rushed over were dumbfounded. This sudden clash of cooking skills caught them off guard. Why did they feel that he was even more irritable than the alchemists? However, after being dumbfounded for a while, everyone became excited. This kind of blood-boiling cooking skill clash was what they were looking forward to the most. Chapter 634. This time, Bufang chose to barbecue. He used spirit energy to barbecue, and he used a lot of precious spirit beast meat. The aroma was so rich that it lingered for a long time, almost condensing into a substance. Tai, come and take a look. Your cooking is getting worse and worse. You should learn more from Owner Bu. Hades casually waved his hand, and the white-haired child appeared beside Hades, sitting down. Picking up his chopsticks, he picked up a piece of barbecue meat. The meat was covered in oil, and there were even some seasonings on it, looking quite tempting. This, how did you do it? Is that the smell of a heaven and earth obsidian flame? Zhou Tong chewed on the barbecue meat, and his mouth was covered in oil. His eyes were filled with disbelief and astonishment. Hot steam rose, and pieces of tender meat emitted an enchanting aroma. Pink, green, yellow, all kinds of colors intertwined, causing the dish to be extremely attractive in terms of color and aroma. The air seemed to become a little quieter at this moment. The ground was filled with spirit fruit fragments and fruit shells. The main hall was a mess, and there were even spirit beast bones scattered around. However, Zhou Tong's words made his heart involuntarily move. After angrily rubbing the white-haired child's head for a while, Hades's figure flashed, and he returned to his high seat. He lazily leaned back, raising his head, and his expression was one of despair. Hades wore a set of armor, and his entire body was tall and handsome. He walked down from his seat, and with a kacha sound, he walked in front of the white-haired child, his expression incomparably solemn. If someone were to appear here, they would definitely not think that this was the solemn and dignified Hades palace. They would only think that this was a place that had just finished a banquet, but was not cleaned up. Zhou Tong looked at the dish in front of him, which was roasted at just the right temperature, and there was not the slightest bit of burnt smell. His eyes also revealed a hint of surprise. Once the barbecue meat entered his mouth, Zhou Tong's eyes instantly lit up, and his eyes revealed a hint of disbelief. Zhou Tong wiped off the water stains on his hands, and finally finished his cooking. The white-haired Tai blinked in confusion. Lord Hades, what's a spicy strip? Hades' era's jet-black hair fluttered as he stuffed a spirit fruit into his mouth. He bit down on it, and the juice splattered everywhere. The sweet and sour taste filled his mouth. Zhou Tong was stunned. In the next moment, the expression on his face began to tremble. The Gluttonous Immortals restaurant, which had been decorated with gold and jade, was reduced to ruins by this one palm. The signboard of the gluttonous immortals restaurant was smashed to pieces by Zhou Tong. With his hands behind his back, Bu Fang looked at Zhou Tong's departing figure indifferently, his face expressionless. After receiving the Nether King's order, the white-haired child took a step and ran toward the distance. That smell was simply too mesmerizing. However, his voice still lingered in the air. This little chef from outside the valley actually gave him that kind of pressure. Cooking with the most primitive methods is the most fragrant. That's the natural smell, that's the most mesmerizing smell, Bu Fang said. The sizzling sound of oil splattering rang out from the black turtle constellation wok. Every time the oil dripped onto the wok, it would cause the flames to burn even brighter. The barbecue skewers on the grill were still gradually ripening, emitting a mesmerizing luster. It made people unable to take their eyes off it. Zhou Tong took in a deep breath. The fragrance was like a little snake drilling into his nostrils, provoking his taste buds. Hades was irritated. He suddenly sat up straight and shook his head, scattering his hair. Zhou Tong's cooking was also nearing its end. He still took out a white porcelain plate. The plate was spotless, and he placed it on the stove. The surrounding diners were almost convinced by Bu Fang and Zhou Tong's skills. The fragrance of the two's cooking spread out, like two roaring beasts colliding in the air. After a while, he ran back with a mirror that was even bigger than his entire body. Panting, he placed the mirror in front of Hades. The two's cooking was really cool, causing many people to be dazzled. Zhou Tong believed that Bu Fang would definitely come to the Valley of Gluttony if Bu Fang wanted to make another breakthrough on the path of cooking. Nether energy appeared in Hades's hand. With a squeeze, the spirit fruits instantly turned into ashes. In the next instant, Hades shouted loudly toward the outside of the palace. After the last stir-frying, Zhou Tong's ladle shook, and instantly, the fragrant dish was scooped out, pouring it onto the white porcelain plate. He held the dish and raised his gaze, looking at Bu Fang in the distance. There, Bu Fang had also finished the final step. However, from his eyes, one could see that he was also amazed by the spirit beast meat. Sizzle! Sizzle! Smells so good. It's the first time I've smelled something so fragrant. I really can't wait to have a taste. The white-haired child's face blushed. The surface of the two-world mirror rippled like water, and in the next moment, a blurry image appeared in the mirror. Tai. I want to eat spicy strips, Hades said seriously. The two of them exchanged dishes to taste. Naturally, they would know who won and who lost. The 10,000 bestial flame in the black turtle constellation wok became more intense. Wave after wave of fragrance surged out. Hence, Zhou Tong tidied up his cooking utensils, turned around, and walked away. If this kind of person entered the Valley of Gluttony, how terrifying would it be? In the dark area that stretched as far as the eye could see, there was a massive, towering palace made of pitch-black metal. It looked like it had been slashed by a saber energy. Bu Fang held 5 skewers in one hand, his face indifferent. His mental energy surged like waves, covering the skewers. He even controlled the flames. Sizzle! Sizzle! What's this thing? How could it taste so bad? I want to eat spicy strips. I'm poisoned by them. Unfortunately, he couldn't smell any burning smell. Hades reached out his hand, placing it on the white-haired child's head. His body slightly bent, he squinted. The collision of aroma was silent, but it made the diners feel so uncomfortable. Are these two really chefs? I didn't know chefs could be so gorgeous. Hades sat on a high seat in the main hall of the palace. Gluttonous Immortals Restaurant. Indeed, I don't deserve the title of gluttonous immortal. Zhou Tong shook his head. The important thing was, he picked up a few more skewers and put them in his mouth, feeling the flavor of the roasted meat spreading and exploding in his mouth. Emissary Tai blinked his big eyes, following Hades, stuffing spirit fruits into his mouth. Oh, this restless owner-boo is stirring up trouble again. It was unknown when another handful of spirit fruits appeared in Hades's hand. He stuffed them into his mouth while watching excitedly. At this moment, Zhou Tong was very clear. A figure flew in from outside the palace, respectfully appearing in front of Hades. No wonder when Rinzhou lost to Bufang. This chef who didn't come from the Valley of Gluttony was too monstrous. Tai, bring me my two-realm mirror. I can't eat spicy strips, but I'll take a look, right? Those damn ghouls. One day I will skin them all. A bunch of stinky skulls. A man wearing cold, pitch-black armor leaned against a chair with a bored face. He held a handful of strange spirit fruits in his hand, stuffing them into his mouth from time to time. Netherworld, he pulled down all the skewers, pouring them into a blue and white porcelain plate. Finally, he sprinkled some seasoning. Steam billowed, and the aroma filled the air. Zhou Tong's cooking skills were even better than Rinzhou's. In the picture, flames shot up to the sky, and oil splashed everywhere he lost. Zhou Tong didn't say anything. This wasn't a chef's challenge, but the two of them had a tacit bet. Those damn ghouls had eaten all of I's spicy strips. They made I feel cold, lonely, and empty. He was so angry that his stomach was about to explode. This was the unique cooking technique of the Valley of Gluttony, which could bring out the aroma of the ingredients to the fullest. Boom! Zhou Tong's technique was so skillful and unique. He had a strict control over every stir-fry angle. With that, Bufang's dish was completed. He just raised his palm, and in the next instant, he waved it at the gluttonous Immortals restaurant. He sighed. He had lost this battle. With a wave of his hand, the blue and white porcelain plate in Bufang's hand flew up, drifting toward Zhou Tong. Zhou Tong had never seen barbecue before. However, according to Bufang's cooking method, which was to grill the ingredients directly on the flame, it was like the most primitive cooking method. This cooking method should have been eliminated, but Bufang could actually use this primitive method to cook such a fragrant dish. He placed the ladle into the wok. However, in the vast palace there were very few people. After a long time, the Nether King scratched his head in frustration. A sad expression appeared on his handsome face. His eyes were misty, thinking about the delicious spicy strips, and he couldn't control himself. Every time they collided, the diners' hearts would rise to the peak. They couldn't help but take in a deep breath to absorb the aroma. It should be known that those people were the most monstrous chefs in the Valley of Gluttony. They were all first-grade chefs, and some of them had even touched the threshold of a special-grade chef. The tenderness of the meat, the aroma of the meat, and the aroma of the dish were all mixed together. Bufang, right? I'll be waiting for you in the Valley of Gluttony. At that time, I'll defeat you fair and square on the path of cooking. Zhou Tong's figure gradually disappeared into the distance. He was called Tai, Hades's emissary. In the entire majestic palace, there were only Hades and this white-haired child. However, Hades didn't look like he was enjoying it. This was a child with a head full of white hair. This child's eyes were really big, and when he blinked, there seemed to be a spirit moving in them. Tai. Hurry up and come in, Tai. In the distance, Zhou Tong's cooking had reached its climax. Around him, the aroma was like a strange beast that had turned into a divine weapon, roaring and surging unceasingly. When he walked past the gluttonous Immortals restaurant, Zhou Tong didn't even lift his head. In his head, the serious voice of the system arose at this moment. The Valley of Gluttony? I'll go. Bufang mumbled. No spicy strips to eat. So angry. Bufang's control of the fire was really amazing. The meat didn't have the slightest bit of burnt smell. Even if there was a trace of burnt smell, Zhou Tong dared to guarantee that he would win this round. From Bufang, Zhou Tong could even feel the pressure that he could only feel from the monstrous chefs in the Valley of Gluttony. With a pinch of the chopsticks, the oil in the roasted meat instantly spilled out. It was incomparably fragrant. In front of him, Bufang used his chopsticks to pick up a piece of tender spirit beast meat that Zhou Tong had stir-fried. His face didn't change at all. Within it, Zhou Tong even tasted a unique flavor. It was the natural flavor of flames. That kind of flavor made Zhou Tong, who was a chef, completely fall into it. Zhou Tong's eyes narrowed. With a wave of his hand, his dish also flew over, landing in Bufang's hand. The corners of Bufang's mouth twitched. He put down his chopsticks and didn't continue tasting. Because he still knew who won this cooking competition. The corners of the palace were ferocious. The ice-cold iron pillars were like sharp killing swords that shot up into the sky. The edges of the swords emitted a cold light. Between the edges of the swords, there were pitch-black and ice-cold chains connecting them. When the chains collided, they would make clanking sounds. The two of them aren't competing in cooking skills. They're competing in loneliness. This was the Hades Palace, the palace of the Lord of the Netherworld. It was different from the luxurious and grand palace that one had imagined. This palace was cold and remote. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.